Chapter 386. In the northern wasteland, when the first ray of sunlight pierced through the darkness, the light of dawn flashed across the astrology platform on the top floor of the wizard tower in the northern wasteland. As the first ray of sunlight appeared, the bell in the northern wasteland city rang loudly. The quiet northern wasteland city was awakened at this moment. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dozens of magic fireworks shot into the sky, piercing through the darkness before dawn. They bloomed beautifully in the sky. The entire city turned into a sea of joy at this moment. The royal palace of the northern wasteland city. Outside the newly renovated royal palace, rows of well-equipped spear guards stood straight on both sides of the road. The roofs around the royal palace had been occupied by half-elf archers. The main roads of the city had been cleared. The wide and straight road extended all the way to the royal palace. The streets were covered with red carpets, and all kinds of flower petals were falling from the sky. All the residents of the northern wasteland city stood on both sides of the road, waving their arms and cheering. At this moment, a few black shadows quickly approached from the sky. The sound of wings flapping could be heard. With the first ray of sunlight, a group of people appeared in the sky. 9 giant Cryopterus bodies appeared in the sky. Although these pterosaurs were only 2 years old, their wingspan was already more than 6 meters. There was a drow knight sitting on each Cryopterus. Their armor made of fine iron was not heavy. It set off their tall and slender bodies. The ferocious pterosaurs under them looked extraordinary. However, they were not the main characters. They were only the vanguard guards leading the way. Behind these Cryopterus knights, a majestic Pegasus flew across the sky. Sulan had a sword at his waist, and he was wearing a gorgeous silver armor. He was riding the Pegasus at full speed. The morning glow in the sky covered them with a layer of golden red light, making them look like gods emitting a golden light. Long live Sulan, long live the Northwind Principality. After seeing the figures in the sky, the cheers sounded in unison. The army of the northern wasteland city cheered in unison. Their voices were deafening. The residents around them also cheered. Their voices echoed through the sky. Some people in the northern battlefront city were watching the ceremony from afar. As long as they did not approach the important areas of the city, the hidden guards would not chase them away. Sulan chose to hold the founding ceremony at dawn, the last touch of darkness before dawn. Then, he waited for the first ray of sunlight to pierce through the darkness and descend from the sky. Accompanied by a golden radiance, Sulan descended from the sky with 9 winged dragon knights. The winged dragon knights glided in midair before taking off again. Sulan rode his Pegasus and landed on the red carpet covered with flowers 100 meters away from the Arc de Triomphe. The Pegasus raised its head to the sky and neighed, gently kicking its hooves. At this moment, the bell rang again, leisurely spreading throughout the entire city. It was like an order. The entire northern town city was filled with symphonic music. The bells and drums rang together, solemn music resounding in the city. A ray of golden light descended from the sky. The path under the Pegasus' feet instantly solidified. It was as bright as gold, but it was not vulgar. The golden path extended from under his feet all the way to the northern town city palace. Sulan smiled casually. He gently squeezed the horse's belly. The Pegasus snorted and stepped on the golden light. As he kept moving forward, the residents on both sides of the path knelt on the ground one by one. As he kept moving forward, the people in the crowd knelt down in rows like dominoes. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. As Sulan kept moving forward, the solemn Arc de Triomphe emitted a faint spiritual light. As he kept getting closer, the spiritual light became brighter and brighter. At the same time, a faintly discernible song sounded around the Arc de Triomphe, and it became clearer and clearer. Finally, as Sulan came to the front of the Arc de Triomphe, the song became deafening. Dozens of faint golden figures could be seen on the Arc de Triomphe. These figures were all wearing armor and holding weapons. Their cold faces appeared. They were the faces of all the sacrifices since the founding of the northern town city. War souls. These soldiers who died on the battlefield did not disappear. Instead, they became army souls and entered the Arc de Triomphe. If they were given enough time, these army souls would gradually transform into heroic spirits. At this time, these army souls woke up from their deep sleep and escorted Sullen's coronation. Seeing this, Sullen's footsteps paused slightly. Then, as if nothing had happened, he continued to move forward. At this time, he had already sensed that a few miracle buildings in the city had been activated by themselves. Rays of spiritual light rose up and covered the entire city. In the magnificent song, Sulen gradually walked into the palace of the northern town city. At this time, the song stopped, and the cheers sounded again. In the uniform cheers of the army, the originally uneven voices merged into one. Soon, all the voices merged into one. The loud voice soared into the sky and echoed in the sky above the northern town city. Even the clouds in the sky were scattered by this powerful sound. In the palace hall, the spacious hall was now filled with people. Several countries that were close to Sulen had sent envoys. Many nobles' envoys were also present. Next to these people were the senior members of the temples of the various churches in the northern town city. Today, they were all here to watch and witness the ceremony. Sulen came to the entrance of the hall and jumped off his horse. Hathaway, Chrissy, Alex, and Phyllis, who had been waiting here for a long time, all put on their best clothes and waited with smiles on their faces. Sulen nodded to them and walked in front. Hathaway held on to Sullen's arm and walked half a step behind him. The others followed closely behind. The group was led to the hall by a few maids and then stepped onto the central platform. Several other half-elf maids came up with a few trays with crowns on them. Sulen reached out and picked up a gorgeous crown and put it on his head. Then, he put the crowns on Hathaway, Chrissy, Alex, and Phyllis. Special envoy from the King of the Kingdom of Florence congratulates the Duke of Northern Wind on his coronation. After Sulen put on the crown and sat on the throne, the prepared envoy stepped forward and bowed to the nobles before congratulating Sulen. The special envoy from the Kingdom of Florence opened the curtains, followed by many special envoys from other kingdoms and nobles who came forward to congratulate him. Special envoy from the Kingdom of Lorenza congratulates the Duke of Northern Wind on his coronation. Special envoy from the Kingdom of Amher congratulates the Duke of Northern Wind on his coronation. Special envoy from Marquis Savoy of Cult congratulates the Duke of Northern Wind on his coronation. All the nobles' envoys, including the Kingdom of Lorenza and the Kingdom of Amher, came forward to congratulate Sulen. Soon, the churches in the northern town city also came forward to congratulate him on the establishment of the Duke of Northern Wind. After these people finished their congratulations, Sulen stood up. Ha ha ha. He laughed and took 2 steps forward. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the establishment of the Duke of Northern Wind and my coronation. His voice was loud and clear. In an instant, the clouds parted and the sun rose in the sky. The dazzling sunlight shone on Sulen as if he was the only one in the world. In the hall and in the square, thousands of people stood on both sides of the square. Their burning gazes were all focused on Sulen. There was reverence, joy, admiration, and fear. At this moment, all of them gathered together. I announce the establishment of the Duke of Northern Wind. In the name of the Duke of Northern Wind, I announce that today is the National Day of the Duke of Northern Wind. At the same time, I confer Hathaway, Chris, Alex, and Phyllis as duchesses. Hearing Sullen's words, the surrounding nobles looked at each other. It was the first time that 4 duchesses were conferred at once. For a moment, the nobles' envoys in the hall whispered to each other. Hathaway stood up and walked to Sullen's side, snorting softly. Her voice was low, but it seemed to ring in their ears. In an instant, the whole hall quieted down. Then, a powerful energy wave surged from Hathaway's body. Even the jade ornaments in the surroundings were blown back and forth by this force. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. A legendary wizard. How is this possible? A 20-year-old legendary wizard. So strong. After feeling the energy wave from Hathaway's body, the noble's envoys, who had just fallen silent, suddenly burst into an uproar. They looked at Hathaway in disbelief. In this world, a legendary wizard's deterrence was much stronger than a legendary warrior's. After all, no matter how strong a legendary warrior was, it was still very difficult for one to destroy a city. However, a legendary wizard was different. They had too many ways to destroy a city. Meteor shower, meteor fall, undead calamity, and many other powerful spells. They could even permanently change the environment of an area. After knowing that Hathaway had become a legendary wizard, the noble's envoys, who were whispering to each other, quieted down instantly. They were all as honest as quails. A legendary wizard's deterrence was very high. At this time, Sulen chose to show his strength. With a legendary warrior and a legendary wizard in charge, the Duchy of Beifeng's position was instantly stabilized. After all, many duchies didn't even have a legendary wizard. A young legendary wizard. This was simply shocking. It was not as easy to become a legendary wizard as a legendary warrior. There were very few duchies in the continent that had a legendary wizard in charge, and they all needed to support these legendary wizards' experiments. The annual cost of Kinnar was a huge figure, but there were still many people who were willing to do it. Compared to warriors, wizards had a much longer lifespan. As long as there were no accidents, they could live for thousands of years. Chapter 387. A large amount of data flashed past Sullen's eyes. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. Country template is being activated. Country data is being calculated. Data conversion in progress, data calculation complete. Country template activated. Countless streams of data appeared before Sullen's eyes. A large amount of information appeared and disappeared quickly. Soon, all the data disappeared, and a template appeared before his eyes. Country, Northwind Dukedom, Location, Northern Wastelands, Underground World, Territories, Northgard City, Mirror Lake City, Centaur City, Orundo, City of the Grey Dwarves, Crete City, City of the Taurans. Omitted, will be added later. The country template looked simple, but it contained many meanings. After establishing the dukedom, not only were the 3 cities in the Northern Wastelands included, even the cities in the Underground World were included in the dukedom. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. The reward is the Imperial Jade Seal. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. You have received an exclusive troop class. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. You have received the title, King of the North. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. You have received a diamond treasure chest. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. You have received a miracle building blueprint. A series of system notifications sounded in Sullen's ears. He did not expect that establishing a dukedom would give him so many rewards. At the same time, after the dukedom was successfully established, a powerful elemental energy gathered at the harvest altar in Northgard City. The energy in the surroundings was also attracted by this power. Those who were participating in the celebration and those who were hiding in the dark could all feel this power. This energy was somewhat different from ordinary elemental energy. It felt like the energy of a druid. What kind of energy is this? It seems like the energy of nature, but there are some differences. This energy has reached the legendary level. Could it be another legendary expert? That's impossible. No, this seems to be the energy of a magical building. At the same time, just as everyone was feeling puzzled, two other forces rose up from two other places in the city. The triumphal arch was surrounded by a faint spiritual light. After Su Len entered the palace and completed the founding ceremony and coronation, the war spirits all returned to the triumphal arch. However, at this time, a huge amount of energy was extracted, and the triumphal arch suddenly shone brightly. The arcane garden was also glowing with light, and a beautiful song could be heard. At this moment, three forces were released at the same time. Harvest Blessing, Song of Triumph, Arcana Praise. Three consecutive blessings exploded and enveloped the entire northern garrison city. Su Len looked at the system interface in shock. He saw three buffs in the northern fortress town. Harvest Blessing, this city has received a blessing. During this period of time, the crops in the city will not be affected by pests and diseases. The yield will increase by 50% and the maturity period of the crops will be shortened by 15%. The duration will last for 1 year. Song of Triumph, when the Song of Victory is played, the morale of the entire city will increase by 50%. The rate of residents joining the army will increase by 50%. The sense of belonging among the residents of the northern garrison city will also increase by 20%. Arcana Praise, Special Effect. For the next 1 year, the strength of newborns born in the northern garrison city will increase by 50%. After seeing these three buffs, Su Len was very happy. It could be said that these three buffs had increased the effect of the three wonders of the city by 50%. The founding ceremony ended with cheers and applause. The entire city became a sea of festivities. All kinds of food and performances were prepared in advance. The civilians began to celebrate. In the palace, the grand ceremony had also begun. Su Len prepared a sumptuous feast for the guests. However, he did not have time to chat with these people. After leaving things to Chris, he returned to his room and began to check the rewards of the successful founding of the northern garrison city. After returning to his room, Su Len opened his storage dimension and saw a jade seal carved out of beautiful jade. Imperial Jade Seal, this is the symbol of the northern garrison city's power. It represents the power of the Duke. Destiny +20, Destiny Suppressing +20, Peace and Peace +20, People's Allegiance +20, Evil's Avoidance +20, Indestructible +20, The Way of the Emperor +20. Su Luen took out the jade seal, which was the size of a palm. It was made of suet white jade, which was smooth to the touch. A mythical beast was carved on it, and there were beautiful patterns around it. The bottom of the jade seal was engraved with the words, "Receive the mandate of heaven, live long and prosper forever." Of course, this imperial jade seal and the imperial jade seal from his previous life had nothing to do with each other except for the words carved on it. However, the attributes of this imperial jade seal seemed to be very good. It would benefit the territory a lot. After putting away the imperial jade seal, Su Len continued to check the rest of the items. Su Len had obtained an exclusive troop class. After Su Len opened it, he realized that the troop class could only be obtained through a lottery. Su Len chose to check. Suddenly, a Russian-like roulette wheel appeared in his mind. There were all kinds of troop classes on it, such as the White Horse Cavalry, Shiliang Cavalry, Xiandeng Death Soldiers, Wudong Flying Army, Brave Tiger Guards, Yulin Guards, Tiger Leopard Cavalry, Imperial Guards, Yulin Guards, Yulin Cavalry, Winged Ho Archers, and about 20 to 30 other troop classes. After seeing the Dragon Cannon Guards and Imperial Guards, Su Len's eyes lit up. These two troop classes were very strong. Both of them could attack from a distance, and their attacks had additional effects. The Dragon Cannon Guards could shoot fireballs, which had explosive and burning effects. The Imperial Guards could shoot thunderballs, which had paralyzing and chain lightning effects. The other special troop classes also had their own strengths. Su Len was dazzled. Su Len hesitated, took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and spun the roulette wheel. The roulette wheel spun quickly. Su Len became nervous. Although he could definitely get a special troop class, each special troop class was different. He naturally wanted to get a high-value troop class. Soon, the roulette wheel slowed down. In the end, the needle went past the Wudong Flying Army and Xiandeng Death Soldiers. It looked like it was going to stop at the Dragon Cannon Guards, but the roulette wheel didn't seem to have run out of power. It moved forward a little more and stopped at the Imperial Guards. Seeing that the needle was pointing at the Imperial Guards, Su Len was disappointed. The Imperial Guards weren't a fighting force. They were better at invading, assassinating, and spying. Although he was disappointed that he didn't get the Dragon Cannon Guards, the Imperial Guards weren't bad. Although they had lost a powerful unit, the Imperial Secret Service was still a good intelligence network. Together with the Flying Eagles in Northern Town City, the foundation of an intelligence network was almost complete. Although they had lost a powerful unit, it was still a good idea to build a perfect intelligence network. Su Len happily put away the commander's seal of the Imperial Guards. Then, he looked at the other rewards. After establishing the country, Su Len also received the title of King of the North. It sounded very impressive. Su Len was looking forward to the effects of the title. King of the North, exclusive title. After countless battles, you have defeated the gnolls, trolls, ogres, orcs, frost giants, hydras, and many other races and powerful enemies. You have successfully established a powerful country in the northern wastelands. You have become the King of the North. Your prestige has increased. Your people love and respect you. Your enemies are hostile to you. They are afraid of you. The other races in the wastelands also respect you. There is a certain chance of you receiving contributions. King of the North plus 20, Coercion plus 20, Submission of the Four Seas plus 20, People's Allegiance plus 20, Intimidation plus 20. Effect is permanent. F***CK, this title is awesome. Su Luen rubbed his chin. The effect of this title was effective after he obtained it. He didn't need to wear it anymore. In this way, Su Luen could wear another title, and the attributes of this title were also very good. It was comparable to the bonus of a special building. After checking the effects of the title, Su Len took out the remaining diamond treasure chest. This was the first time Su Len had obtained a diamond treasure chest. He didn't know when he would get one again. Now that he had killed a legendary expert, he only got a platinum treasure chest. What kind of enemy did he have to defeat to get a diamond treasure chest? An advanced legendary? A demigod? Or an abomination? Su Len shook his head and chased the thought away. After calming himself down, Su Len deliberately washed his hands and prepared to open the diamond treasure chest. A series of beautiful special effects flashed, and the system's attribute notification rang in his ears. Congratulations, host. You have opened the diamond treasure chest. You have obtained the item, Mystery Lock Theory and Creation. Mystery Lock Theory and Creation? After hearing the system's notification, Su Len was greatly surprised. Although he was mentally prepared, he was still surprised by what he got this time. Mystery locks were first created by the High Elves. After the rise of the Arcane Kingdom, this spell was replaced and improved by the Great Arcanists and became the standard of the Floating City. Hathaway had not mastered this high-end magic technology. The only thing that was passed down in her school was the enchantment circle. Originally, Su Len planned to make do with the enchantment circle in the Wizard Tower for a while. He didn't expect to get such a thing. In this world, there were still several large organizations that had the mystery lock technology. For example, the High Elves, Elven Court, the Silver Moon Councils, Silver Moon Guardian, the Lava Towers, Heart of Flame, the Druid Councils, Thorn Oak, and so on. Now, Northern Town City had also obtained this technology. Su Len was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He was going to study this technology with Hathaway and strive to master this technology as soon as possible. P.S. It was too late yesterday, so I didn't finish it. I'll make it up today. There are 2 more updates. Happy New Year to everyone. Chapter 388. At first, there were 24 runes that he had learned from the High Elves. After many years of development, the number of runes that had been published in the Arcane Empire had reached 36. It was said that some of the runes had been mastered by the great arcanists. There were rumors that the number of runes had reached more than 70. Each rune had its own unique power. During the Arcane Empire, there were even people who developed rune stones. They used a special method to make a rune into a gem, and then combined several rune gems according to a certain formula to make a powerful equipment. However, the process of making rune gems had been lost. Most of the rune equipment circulating now were products of the Arcane Empire, and some were made from rune gems excavated from ruins. Enigma was a spell sequence composed of a large number of runes according to a special arrangement. At first, the Enigma of humans did not cover a large area, generally only 300 to 500 meters. At the same time, the Enigma created by the High Elves could cover a city. During the Arcane Empire, the Enigma of humans developed by leaps and bounds and became the standard of wizard towers and floating cities. After putting away the important spell book, Enigma Principles and Creation, Sulen took out the last remaining blueprint of the Building of Wonders. Building of Wonders Blueprint, Hero's Spirit Tower. After use, you can build a Hero's Spirit Tower of Wonders. Hero's Spirit Tower, construction requires the Triumphal Arch. This is a tower built with iron and blood. It is the final home of a warrior. With this building, the martial spirit of the territory can be improved. Within 30 miles of the city, newborns have a 10% chance of becoming warriors. At the same time, the morale of all the soldiers in the North Town City +20. The souls of the dead soldiers will enter the Triumphal Arch, and the chances of the souls of war becoming heroic spirits +20. Martial Spirit +35, Indestructible +37, Strong Will +35, Unyielding Soul of War +28, with space of the Heroic Spirit Palace, space can grow. The Hero's Spirit Tower was not bad. It was a perfect match with the Triumphal Arch. With the Hero's Spirit Tower, the chances of the souls of war becoming heroic spirits would increase a lot. However, to build this building, he still needed 2 Battle Soul Stones. Sulen did not have any Battle Soul Stones now, so he could not build it for the time being. It wasn't easy to get a Battle Soul Stone. Sulen had issued a mission to the caravans to purchase Battle Soul Stones. Over 100 caravans from all over the continent had gathered in Northern Town City. As long as the price was right, someone would be able to get it. After packing up, the atmosphere of the banquet in the palace was very hot. Su Luan came to the banquet in a good mood and greeted everyone. After staying here for more than 10 minutes, he left the banquet. After the establishment of the principality, life in Sulen did not change much. After all, it was only a small country with a population of a few 100,000. There was no need to appoint ministers. The caravans that had come to attend the founding ceremony of Beifeng Principality also began to load up the goods produced by Beifeng City and leave. Because of the celebration, Sulen specifically ordered that the quota for this month would be doubled. Now, the most popular commodity in northern Battlefront City had changed from white sugar to toilet paper. This kind of toilet paper was not only popular among the nobles, but also among the commoners. Of course, the nobles would buy the delicate, soft, and white toilet paper that was sprayed with perfume. The commoners would buy the yellow toilet paper that was of average quality. When Sulen saw that the toilet paper was selling like hot cakes, he immediately thought of soap and perfume. However, when he was about to start making them, he suddenly realized that he had no idea how to make soap. After all, he was not an engineering student in his previous life. He had no idea how to make soap. Therefore, he could only let the craftsman study it slowly. As for perfume, it was very simple. All he needed to do was dissolve the perfume with alcohol. The difficulty of making perfume was not low. The first step was to find high-purity alcohol. The alcohol content of the drinks in this world was average. For example, ale had about the same alcohol content as beer. It was not easy to find a high alcohol content. At present, the highest alcohol content was the vodka brewed in Northern Town City. The alcohol content was only between 30 and 40%. If he wanted to obtain high-purity alcohol, he would need to distill it. However, since vodka was selling well in Northern Town City, Sulan did not plan to use vodka to make perfume. Therefore, he only made a few bottles for Hathaway and the others. The celebration lasted for 7 days. From this year onwards, this would be the national day of the year. After the grand celebration, everything returned to normal. The commoners in Northern Town City once again began their busy lives. The merchants seized the time to buy goods and make money. Every day, long caravans would come and go. The army also began their training and cleanup missions again. Sulan yawned and rubbed his sore head. The book, Enigma, involved too much knowledge. It was a bit difficult for him to study it. Fortunately, with the talent of erudite, Sulan's learning ability had been strengthened. It increased his learning efficiency by a lot. He was now studying Enigma while learning other wizardry knowledge. After stretching his body, Sulan put away the book and left the palace. Although he had become a Grand Duke, Sulan still liked to wander around the city. This way, he could better understand the situation of the city's lower class. A lot of things happened during this period. Some things happened in the Southern Sea. A pirate ship found the legendary Treasure Island. It was said that the island was covered with gold, silver, and all kinds of gems. The ship was brought there by a storm. When the pirates left, they recorded the route. As soon as they returned to the coast, the pirates on the ship had a fierce fight. In the end, only a few people managed to escape alive. The map was obtained by the first mate of the pirate ship. The remaining pirates sold the information to other forces. As a result, many forces started to fight for it. Of course, the northern wasteland was thousands of kilometers away from the Southern Sea. It took a few months for the news to reach here. It was said that this matter even alarmed the Red Dragon Queen. Red dragons loved treasure very much. There was also some other news. For example, a marquis of the Lorenza kingdom raised his flag and rebelled. He joined forces with another kingdom to attack the Lorenza kingdom. The Lorenza kingdom suffered heavy losses in the orc invasion last year and was now in a defensive state. Although this was the latest news from northern Battlefront City, the most recent news was from half a month ago. Sulan listened for a while and went to the barracks. He planned to officially recruit the embroidered uniform guards and establish an intelligence network in the northern city with the help of the Eagle. In the barracks, Sulan gathered the soldiers in the barracks. There were not many requirements to recruit the embroidered uniform guards. Their strength had to be grade 1 or lower. As long as the army in the northern city was a regular army, most of them were grade 2. A few of them were grade 3. Sulan picked 500 people in the barracks and spent 1,000 kinnar to change their profession to the embroidered uniform guards. Embroidered uniform guards, special forces. Specializes in spying, collecting, transmitting, and assassination. Additional skills, camouflage, detection. The 500 soldiers Sulan picked didn't have much of a change in strength after they were converted into the embroidered uniform guards. They only gained some additional knowledge and 2 additional skills. Next, Sulan built a house near the palace as the office for the embroidered uniform guards. The embroidered uniform guards were also officially named the prison guardians. They were given the first batch of 20 eagles. After the embroidered uniform guards learned how to feed the eagles, Sulan began to send them to other countries around the North Wind Principality to establish intelligence bases. The 500 brocade gown guards recruited by Su Luan were divided into groups of 3 or 4. Each group would carry some funds or goods, and then leave northern town as caravans or wandering mercenaries. These brocade gown guards would establish strongholds in some large cities. These bases might be some taverns and hotels on the surface, but they would secretly collect local intelligence. Once there was something important, or something he thought was important, he would send the information back. Part of the funds would be earned by themselves, while the other part would be allocated by the North Wind Principality. After all, intelligence was a very expensive business. How could 3 to 5 people in a city collect and transmit information? Of course, they would need to recruit some peripheral personnel. Why would these peripheral personnel collect information for you? Of course, it was because of money. Was it because they wanted to generate electricity? Su Lin wanted to maintain a huge intelligence network, so the money spent was naturally very high. Of course, Su Lin could also sell information to outsiders, but this would easily expose himself. Su Lin hadn't figured out how to do it yet. The number of eagles cultivated in the eagle nest wasn't many. Apart from a portion of the eagles left for the scouts, the rest were all given to the embroidered uniform guards. Originally, Su Lin planned to let these eagles breed on their own and then cultivate them. This way, the results would be better if all the eagles were born in the eagle nest. However, the establishment of the embroidered uniform guards required a large number of eagles. If he wanted to obtain a large number of eagles in a short period of time, he could only catch eagles in the wild and train them. Su Lin sent out nearly 100 embroidered uniform guards. These embroidered uniform guards would use various methods to integrate into various large cities and towns. Then, they would establish intelligence bases in the cities and towns. Each intelligence base would need about 3 to 5 eagles. This way, the eagle nest would need to cultivate hundreds of messenger eagles. Of course, this was only temporary. If the number of embroidered uniform guards bases continued to increase, then the number of eagles would also increase. Fortunately, Su Lin didn't want to eat a fat man in one go. The establishment of an intelligence network couldn't be completed overnight. Chapter 389. Su Lin woke up from a deep sleep as the morning sun shone through the curtains. He immediately felt something soft and smooth on his arm. He turned around and looked at the little succubus who was sleeping beside him. Traces of the storm still remained on her delicate face. She looked seductive and a little tired, but she was still sleeping soundly. Although succubi were known to be fearless in bed, they were still defeated by the plasma cannon. Su Lin carefully pulled away the jade-like arm entwined around his arm and Phyllis, who was sleeping soundly on the other side. He got up, picked up a robe and put it on, and then covered himself with the soft silk quilt. It was already July, and the northern wasteland was already very hot. However, Hathaway had set up a large-scale thermostatic magic circle in the palace. Although the technology in this era was backward, many things that could not be done by technology in his previous life could be solved by spells here. Of course, these were only wizards' methods. They were not universal and could not be popularized. Since awakening the dragon bloodline, Phyllis had also undergone a lot of changes. For example, her body had undergone a second growth. The most obvious change was that she had changed from human to all the way from B+ to D+. In addition, she had become more beautiful. Some of the original flaws had disappeared after awakening the dragon bloodline. Phyllis's charm value had increased from 19 to 23. Perhaps she felt Su Lin leaving, Phyllis murmured but did not wake up. She subconsciously waved her arm, trying to grab something. In the end, she just happened to grab Su Lin. She curled her body into a more comfortable position. As a dragon bloodline sorcerer, although his body was very strong, it depended on who he was compared to. Even if it was 1 against 2 last night, the succubus and Phyllis would still lose. Since Phyllis did not want to let him go, Su Lin naturally would not refuse. He smiled and slid his fingers down the smooth silk quilt. Phyllis, who was resting, trembled slightly when she felt the smooth, plump softness in his hand. Sulen, who had just woken up, was full of energy. He once again discussed the mysteries of life with Phyllis. Phyllis had realized that something was wrong. She struggled weakly to escape, but was easily caught by Su Luan. Su Luan patted the peach that was as plump as a full moon. Pia. It was clear and melodious. Then, he used his arm to help her position it into a triangular structure with the bed. A triangular structure was the most stable structure, and it was perfect for a cannon. Soon, a melodious sound came from the room. The sun was high in the sky. Sulen finally came out of his room. The air was filled with the smell of heather. Reaching out his hand, he slapped the perky peaches of the two blushing personal maids. After that, Sulen walked towards the dining room delightedly. After becoming a Grand Duke, Sulen's life did not change much. He still lived the same life as before. Of course, there was one more activity now, which was to learn about puzzles and magi knowledge. The system would sort out and summarize everything that happened in Beifeng Principality. All he needed to do was take a look at the way the council hall handled matters. If something important happened, the system interface would directly notify him. Sulen's job became much easier after he digitized the information of Beifeng Principality. Wizard Tower. A tall steel golem stood still. Hathaway spent a lot of effort and finally completed the steel golem. The steel golem's strength was at grade 4, and its challenge level was 17. Hathaway got the technology to build the steel golem from the tower spirit in the secret realm. Hathaway snapped her fingers, and a flash of energy disappeared. Then, the steel golem's eyes lit up slightly. Master. The steel golem bowed slightly. From today onwards, you are the guard of the Wizard Tower. The Milky Way will arrange things for you. Go. Hathaway waved her hand and said. The steel golem's heavy body turned around and walked away. In fact, although the steel golem was only at grade 4, there were many powerful golems that were upgraded and modified based on the steel golem. The most famous was a golem construct during the Arcane Empire with the ability to transform and repair. This golem's body could transform and repair itself. As long as there was enough energy, it was very difficult to deal with. This technology was the top technology during the Arcane Empire. As long as it was not completely destroyed, it could gradually restore to its original appearance. It was even more shameless than the army of the undead. It was said that this technology was the top technology developed by the great arcanists and the technology of the Giths. It was usually used on high-end golems. This golem had a very strong self-repair ability and could play a very strong combat power in battle. Many times, you would spend a lot of effort to create some scars on it, but in the next second, it would restore to its original appearance. This kind of high-level golem generally appeared in the ruins of the ancient Arcane Empire. Many wizards found this kind of golem and wanted to study the formula of memory metal to use this metal to strengthen the golem puppet. But so far, no one had succeeded. Hathaway could now make the steel golem. Next, she would study the legendary golem. In fact, the legendary golem was the wizard's trump card. Your Excellency Hathaway, His Excellency Sulen wants to see you. The Milky Way's voice sounded. I know, I'll go now. Hathaway moved her body and closed the laboratory. Hathaway went all the way to the top of the Wizard Tower, the astrology platform. At this time, Sulen was lying on a recliner and reading a spell book. Why are you looking for me in such a hurry? Hathaway snapped her fingers, and another recliner flew directly to her side. Hathaway leaned back and lay down. I got a book, and I need you to take a look at it. Sulen dropped the spell book in his hand. The spell book flew by itself under a strange force and returned to its original position on the bookshelf in the room. Hearing that Sulen got another spell book, Hathaway immediately became spirited. Last time, Sulan got a spell book about magic tattoo techniques. Hathaway had only heard of this kind of high-level spell knowledge. The 2 books about magic tattoo techniques could be said to have benefited her a lot. Now that Sulan got another spell book, Hathaway was naturally full of expectations. What spell book? What kind of spell book? Sulan smiled slightly, and then took out the book, The Theory and Making of Riddles, from his storage space. Here, it's this one. The Theory and Making of Riddles was a silver-white book. It looked very precious. Hathaway quickly reached out and took it. After seeing the Nesser title on the book's surface, her body instantly jumped up like a spring. This is the method of making riddles? Hathaway exclaimed. She stared at Sulan without blinking. Sulan yawned, stretched, and said, "Isn't it written on the cover? Why are you asking me? You don't know Nesser?" "Of course I know it. I taught you Nesser." "I'm asking if this book really has information about riddles," Hathaway asked. "Would you believe me if I said it now? You'll know when you see it for yourself." Sulan rolled his eyes at her. Hathaway flipped through the book suspiciously. Riddles contained a lot of information, and it was not a normal book. It was a magic book. Riddles was made of a strange material. Although it looked like paper, after careful inspection, one would find that it was 2 completely different things. Riddles did not contain everything about riddles. In fact, it contained a lot of knowledge that extended to many different fields. Since this book dared to name itself The Theory and Making of Riddles, the knowledge contained in it was all-encompassing. Sulan even suspected that the author of this book was not an ordinary arcanist. When Sulan read the book, he found that if one's mind power and intelligence did not meet the requirements, they would not be able to understand the content. There was a strange magic in this book. It seemed to be able to categorize the mind power and intelligence of the reader. Not everyone was qualified to read this book. Take Boulder and Johnson for example. Their brains were full of muscles, so they couldn't open this book at all. This thing could be used as an intelligence detector. Of course, even if one was qualified to read this book, it did not mean that one would be able to understand it after reading it. This book was a magical item. To read it, one would need to concentrate his mind power, which would consume a lot of his mind power. To understand this book, not only did it require a lot of wizardry knowledge, but it also required the reader to have high intelligence and power. Even if Andre were to read this book, he could only scratch his head and not know where to start. Hathaway flipped through the book and immediately found that this book was different. She frowned and began to read it. Many words automatically appeared on the cover of Riddles. There were also many special symbols that were formed by golden lines. As she read, the lines would automatically form various complicated rune patterns and diagrams. Hathaway could not move her eyes away from the first time she read it. Although this book did not look thick, it contained a lot of knowledge. If all of it was recorded in words, it would take a few million or even tens of millions of words. Sulan spent a week reading about 500,000 to 600,000 words. It was not that he did not want to read more, but that he did not have enough knowledge. If he forced himself to read it, he would find that he could recognize all the words, but could not understand the meaning when they were connected. This was the problem of not having enough professional knowledge. The more Sulan wanted to read this book, the more he needed to learn the other basic knowledge and read it. This method was too time-consuming. He wanted to find Hathaway to find a teacher who could explain it. P.S. Thank you to book friend Long Tinguoxiu, Cici Makujio, Yunxiao Shifan, Emin, I Like Martial Arts, Sockfield, Pain in the Dark, Nightmare Bodyguard, Are You Alright? Shangguan Chuha, Q. Ice 350°C, The Beauty of Poetry, Sa, Ashima More Popular, Crazy Me, Nameless Mo Chen, Unforgettable Thoughts of Death, Nangong Shu, Floating Dreams Short and Small, I Am Not Short and Not Small, Sa Zhu, Treasured Spear Edge Sharpened, Yang Shua, Huang Junming, Forgotten Darkness, Heaven Rewards the Diligent Book Friend, Floating Dreams. Thanks. Thank you to book friend Rotsen, Issa for your rewards. Thank you to CC Scar of the Heavens for your rewards. Floating Dreams. Thanks again. Happy New Year to all book friends who support Floating Dreams. Chapter 390. Hathaway's reading speed was not fast. Seeing that she was reading seriously, Sulan did not disturb her. Instead, he picked up another book from the shelf and began to read. After about 2 hours, Hathaway let out a long sigh of relief and closed the book. After exiting from that state, Hathaway only felt a sense of exhaustion. Her temples were slightly swollen and painful. Just now, she had finished reading, and her power of will and magic were severely depleted. How do you feel? Sulan walked over and gently pressed her temples with his fingers. Hathaway moaned comfortably and closed her eyes in enjoyment. Phew. After a while, Hathaway let out a long sigh of relief. I feel much better now. When I put down the book just now, I felt like my head was going to explode. Sulan smiled. You read for too long. I only read for half an hour each time, and then I rest for a while before continuing. You read for more than 2 hours in one go. Of course your head is going to explode. Don't force yourself in the future, Hathaway said with a frown. What did you learn? Sulan asked. Hathaway frowned. I learned a lot, but I think I still need to wait a while before I can understand the riddle. The content of this book is too profound. Explain it to me when you've mastered it. I still have a lot of things I don't understand. Sulan said as he massaged her. Okay, I'll find you a few books later. The knowledge in those books is all prerequisite knowledge. You need to master it. Hathaway's body curled up in Sulan's arms and changed into a more comfortable position. Although your basic knowledge is lacking, your talent for learning is really good. As long as you fill in the basic knowledge, it won't be hard for you to catch up with me. In reality, apart from the limitation of aptitude, the requirement of intelligence was also very high. Many powerful wizards had the ability of encyclopedic knowledge. Wizards with this kind of talent would be heavily nurtured as long as they were discovered during their apprenticeship period. Every time, they would be the target of many wizards when they were recruiting disciples. Above the talent of encyclopedic knowledge, there was an even more powerful talent called eidetic memory. With this talent, as long as one didn't die prematurely, becoming a legendary wizard was basically something that was set in stone. With this talent, they could master a lot of knowledge, and the Wizard Academy would fully support them. Hathaway had the encyclopedic knowledge talent, which allowed her to easily master a lot of knowledge. Retentive memory was a rare talent. A Wizard Academy might not even have one in 100 or 200 years. Okay. Sulan looked at the list of books that Hathaway had made. Those books were almost as tall as him. With so many books to learn, it was no wonder that wizards were all otakus. After a simple lunch with Hathaway, Sulan went to the training ground. He had not slacked off on his combat skills for a long time. When he arrived at the training ground, Sulan saw that Phyllis was already training in a hunting suit. Although Phyllis was a princess, she was not delicate at all during training. She had a serious look on her face as she practiced with the half-elf ranger. To be honest, the skills of human warriors were not suitable for Phyllis, so Sulan let the drow warrior and the half-elf ranger teach her combat skills together. Sulan did not go to the training ground. Instead, he stood not far away and watched for a while. Phyllis swung her long sword very vigorously. She was much stronger than before, and her footsteps were also very nimble. What she lacked now was combat experience. Looks like the effect of the dragon blood baptism is not bad. Sulan looked at Phyllis up and down with satisfaction. Her slender waist and plump butt were not bad. The recovery ability of the dragon pulse is good. Sulan nodded with satisfaction. After the awakening of the dragon pulse, a person's physique, strength, reflexes, and so on would be strengthened. It was an all-round improvement. Dragon warlocks were different from normal spellcasters. They usually learned a lot of melee combat skills. It could be said that a dragon warlock was not inferior to a warrior in melee combat. Compared to wizards, a dragon warlock had a lot less spells. When faced with a large number of enemies, they would have to pick up a sword and kill directly after using up their spells. Generally speaking, a wizard who could not fight in melee like Gandalf was not a good wizard. Of course, there were not many wizards who could fight like Gandalf, but Gandalf's fighting style was very suitable for a dragon warlock. Sulen stood aside and watched Phyllis train with the half-elven ranger. Since the awakening of the dragon pulse, Phyllis's physique had improved significantly. The half-elven ranger in charge of teaching was also shocked. As Phyllis's teacher, he was very surprised by Phyllis's performance. In less than half a month, Phyllis had gone from a weak girl who had just learned how to hold a weapon to an elite warrior. Was her talent really that good? Okay, take a break. Sulen said to the group. Yes, Lord Duke. The training stopped. Phyllis, just training is not enough. If you want to become stronger, you need to undergo some training on the battlefield. After a while, I will let someone take you to participate in the cleaning of the territory. You should be able to easily deal with those goblins, kobolds, and gnolls. Sulen looked at the heroic Phyllis and said. Phyllis drew a beautiful sword with one hand and said confidently, I will do my best. After the establishment of the Northwind Principality, the construction of the Northgard city did not stop. All kinds of projects were carried out step by step. A few people in black cloaks walked through the crowd. Their attire was not eye-catching in the Northgard city, and many mercenaries and adventurers liked to dress up like this. As the largest city in the northern wastelands, there were many adventurers who went to the northern wastelands in search of ancient ruins or rare materials. A small market similar to the black market of Calent City had gradually formed in Northgard City. It was often used to trade things brought out from ruins or materials found in the northern wastelands. Sulen did not ban this spontaneous market. Instead, he sent a few tax officers to collect taxes. He didn't care what people were trading, but they had to pay taxes. At first, there were some who did not pay because they were strong, but soon, they were taught a lesson by the powerful military of Northgard City. These people in black cloaks came to the market. They were very interested in all kinds of things that came out from ruins. Have you heard? The Grand Duke is going to build a wizard academy here. A young man in a black cloak picked up a piece of metal from the stall and said. Another person in a black cloak nodded and said, I heard. Are you going to join? I haven't decided yet, but if the pay is good, I will consider joining, the young man said. The young man said. Then he waved the injured metal shard and asked the stall owner, how much is this metal shard? 10 kinnar. The stall owner was an adventurer in his 30s. He was wearing a shabby leather armor and had a scar on his face. He looked a little down, but the light in his eyes showed that he was not as simple as he seemed. The young man paused for a moment and put the piece of metal back. Hee, you can keep it for yourself. After that, he stood up and walked to another stall. The other person in a black cloak also left. With our current strength, we will need a lot of resources to advance. It is almost impossible to rely on ourselves. If we want to advance, we have to join an organization. Of course I know that. But there is a problem. How can you be sure that we will not be used as cannon fodder if we join an organization? The other person in a black cloak asked. We have also studied the Northwind Principality and the personality of the Grand Duke. The probability is very small. The younger man in a black cloak said. We've come all the way from the southern sea to here, and we've met quite a few wizard organizations along the way. However, those organizations don't trust foreign wizards. Even if you join them, you won't be treated well. Most of the time, you're just cannon fodder. They trust the wizard apprentices they've cultivated more than people like us. Of course, I know that. But you should know that those wizard organizations are all old forces. The most recent one has a history of almost 1,000 years. They have enough apprentices and all kinds of people. But Northwind City is different. I have already asked around. There are less than 10 wizards in Northwind City. They have no one to use. We do not have to worry about being used as cannon fodder. Alright, since you've already made up your mind, let's give it a try. If any of the Grand Dukes can offer decent conditions, I'll join the academy as well. The other magus thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. After hearing his companion's agreement, the black-cloaked wizard was very happy. Then it is settled. After we are done here, we will go to the wizard tower to sign up. Okay. The other wizard nodded and said, Northwind City is not bad. The concentration of elements here is much higher than normal places. The northern wasteland has a lot of materials, and the price is much cheaper than the south. I heard that the legendary wizard has a botanical garden in his wizard tower. I don't know if it is true or not. I think it is true. Have you sensed the garden in the sky in the city? The concentration of elements there is even more shocking. Also, there are a lot of magic plants there. It is said that as long as you can join the Magic Academy, you will be able to get a small piece of land. You should know that it is a piece of land that can grow magic plants. I really admire that Grand Duke. The cost of building such a garden is shocking, and he is using it as a reward. Let's not go to the market today. Let's go sign up now. If we wait any longer, the Sky Garden might have already been divided up. Another wizard heard the news. He stopped walking around the market and left with his companions. Chapter 391. Sulen, Chris, Hathaway, Alex, Phyllis, Karina, Grace, and the others were all sitting together in the astrology platform of the Wizard Tower. Wizard Lorraine and Wizard Andre were also listening on the side. What did you say? Hathaway was stunned after hearing Sullen's words. It was obvious that Sullen's words had a huge impact on her. You're planning to officially open a wizard academy? And it's not going to be a teacher-student education system? Instead, it's going to be a classroom education system? As Hathaway's voice faded, the other people on the scene were also a little surprised. In this era, the education system was very low. Not to mention wizard academies, even normal academies were educated like aristocrats and elites. If a wizard only taught a few students, the commoners wouldn't be able to read for the rest of their lives. Wizard academies were even more serious. They would usually select some apprentices to join the academy, and after some screening, they would accept the ones with the best qualifications. The rest of them would serve the academy as wizard apprentices. The probability of those wizard apprentices becoming high-ranking wizards was very low. Most of them would become low-ranking wizards to create value for the academy. Yes. Sulen nodded. He had already prepared for the establishment of a wizard academy a long time ago, but the conditions were not right yet. He looked at the others and said in a deep voice, I'm going to open a wizard academy. You should have noticed it by now. The elemental tide has begun again. The elemental tide has really begun? Hearing Sullen's words, the other spellcasters were stunned. As spellcasters, they naturally knew the meaning of the elemental tide. In the world of wizards, everything in the world was made up of energy. The whole world was filled with energy, but only a small part of this energy could be used by them. This was the elemental energy. Energy was not static because all the energy came from the original sea. Therefore, the elemental energy was constantly moving. Some of the original sea's movements were similar to the sea. Just like how the sea had its ebb and flow, the original sea also had its own way of moving. This was the elemental tide. When the elemental tide began, the concentration of elemental energy in the entire multiverse would slowly increase. This process of increase would continue for hundreds of years, and even many planes that were originally lacking in elemental energy would become rich in elemental energy. Of course, this was a good thing for wizards. This meant that it would be easier for them to increase their strength, and the world's upper limit would also increase. The material plane was like a fish pond. Before the elemental tide came, the water in the pond was not deep, and the shallow water could only support small fish and shrimps. After the elemental tide came, the water level in the pond would rise rapidly, creating an environment for the big fish to live in. Therefore, every time the elemental tide came, all kinds of legendary champions would emerge one after another like bamboo shoots after the rain. In history, there was no lack of talented geniuses, but they were born at the end of the elemental tide. Their elemental energy continued to decline until it finally fell to the freezing point. Then, they wasted their entire lives and were unable to enter the legendary realm. Now that they knew that the elemental tide was coming again, these spellcasters were naturally excited. What? You don't believe me? Then you can ask Hathaway. She's a legendary wizard. She should know more about the elemental tide than I do. Seeing the look in their eyes, Sulen said with a smile. Hathaway looked at them and nodded. During this period of time, the concentration of elemental energy has been slowly rising. The probability of the elemental tide coming is very high. After hearing Hathaway's words, a trace of joy flashed in the eyes of these spellcasters. It was obvious that they would be able to enjoy the benefits of the elemental tide. After getting the confirmation, everyone kept talking. Dong dong dong. Seeing that these people were getting further and further away from the topic, Sulen could only knock on the table and remind them. Today, we are discussing about the Wizard Academy. You can discuss the elemental tide in private. Yes, sir. Everyone stopped talking. After the hall became quiet again, Sulen continued, there's another benefit of the elemental tide. The number of people with the potential to become a wizard will increase. There are now hundreds of thousands of people in the North Town City. There are many newborns with the potential to become a wizard. We must make use of them. Quite a few wizards have come to North Town City these days. Although most of them are low-ranking wizards, they don't know many spells, and they aren't very powerful. The knowledge they have accumulated is very valuable. If the North Wind Duchy wants to develop, we need a lot of talents. Also, we have built the largest wizard tower in the northern wasteland, but we don't have enough wizard apprentices to do the daily work. The maintenance of the wizard tower can't all rely on the puppet golems. Although they are very useful, there are still some details that they can't handle. A functioning adept tower requires a large number of apprentice adepts and low-grade adepts. We don't use the aristocratic elite education method because although it's good, the efficiency is too low. A wizard usually teaches 6 to 7 wizard apprentices. It's too slow compared to the big classroom education method. Also, this kind of big classroom education method doesn't have high requirements for the teachers. These parts can be done by wizard apprentices. If we can form a production line, then the wizard apprentices will only need to activate the golem workshop. In that case, the wizards only need to be responsible for the most important activation and charging parts. This way, we can increase efficiency. Sulen said with a smile. This kind of education method could provide a lot of manpower for the northern town city. The northern town city didn't lack people who worked at the bottom. What the wizard tower needed was skilled labor. To Sulen, the wizard apprentices were like tools. They didn't need to be strong or have ideas. They just needed to work according to Sulen's requirements. That's right, Sulen was now getting closer to capitalists. In order to build the academy, we're going to recruit more wizards as teachers. We've also discussed the conditions. As long as they pass the exam, they can join our wizard academy. After gathering the opinions of others, the Northwind Principality officially started the Northwind Academy. At the same time, many wandering wizards came here in advance. After hearing about the benefits of the Northwind Academy, many wizards went to sign up. After everything was arranged, Sulen began to busy himself with other things. Sulen sent 2 construction teams to build the Wizard Academy. The others were also busy. Hathaway was mainly learning the knowledge of Enigma. Once she mastered the knowledge of Enigma, she would build Enigma around the Wizard Tower. Alex was in charge of the Mystery Realm, and Chris was in charge of the Underground World. Karina and Grace helped Sulen manage the city. Everything in the northern town city was developing in an orderly manner. In addition, Sulen also planned to upgrade the academy in the northern town city. In the past, the academy in the northern town city was called an academy, but in reality, it was used to train low-level officials. Now, Sulen wanted to train more people. The northern town city was limited by the lack of talents when it was first developed. If the Northwind Principality wanted to develop quickly, it naturally needed to train more talents. Chapter 392. The academy in Northern Town was not big at first. In the beginning, there were only 2 or 3 scholars as teachers. After several expansions, the number of teachers was less than 20. Now that the number of officials in Northern Town was almost enough, he planned to turn the academy into a school. When he built Northern Town, Sulen promised the soldiers that he would build a school in the future so that the children of the soldiers could learn to read and learn. Now that Beifeng Principality had been built, he planned to fulfill his promise. In the arena. It was the only place in Northern Town where legal duels could be held. It was as lively as ever. There were a lot of mercenaries and adventurers in the city. Usually, these people who lived on the edge of blades had bad tempers. They would start a fight if they had a disagreement. Because of the strict laws in Northern Town, these people did not dare to fight in public. Therefore, they would come here to arrange a duel. Because of this, there were often single elimination matches in the arena. The officials of Northern Battlefront City were quite supportive of this. This was because these single elimination matches would attract a lot of spectators. The officials would directly sell tickets in the arena. Some of the more famous ones would even set up bets for the matches. Now, the arena had become a stable industry. When there were no duels, the officials would arrange for some gladiators to fight. Martial arts were popular in Northern Town, so the arena was very popular here. The arena in Northern Town could hold 3,000 to 5,000 people at most. The ticket price was from 3 to 5 silver nars. The VIP seats were as high as 1 kinnar. There were not many entertainment activities in this era. Apart from taverns, seafood merchants, bards, and circuses, there were only gladiator fights. Traveling poets and circuses rarely came to Northern Town. The cheapest drink in the taverns cost at least 3 copper coins, and the amount was not much either. It would be gone in a few mouthfuls. It was not affordable for ordinary people, so the gladiator arena was more exciting. Today, the gladiator arena was packed with people. 2 people were fighting in the gladiator arena. There were several types of fights in the gladiator arena. The most common type was the performance type. This type of gladiator arena was very exciting and had many rules. Although there were casualties, it was very low. The other kind was the arranged duel. This kind of duel often had casualties, so many people liked to watch it. However, it was not every day. Today, it was an exhibition fight in the arena. However, unlike the hot-blooded shouts of the past, many people were whispering to each other today. Is this true? Of course it's true. The City Hall has already announced it on the bulletin board. The Academy is officially open to the citizens of the Northern Battlefront City. As long as you are a citizen of the Northern Battlefront City, you are eligible to enroll. Really? Do you have any other requests? There are no requirements. Also, if your family has a family member in the military, you can waive your tuition fees. The school will provide you with 1 meal a day, and the school will last for 5 years. This is the Grand Duke's promise to us. Since the establishment of the Duchy of North Wind, Sulan had been addressed as Grand Duke. More and more people began to praise Sulan's great achievements. After all, the entire North Town was built because of Sulan, and they could live such a good life because of Sulan. The people at the grassroots level were actually very easy to satisfy. If you're not a citizen of Northern Battlefront City, you won't be able to enjoy such treatment. A bearded man beside him said excitedly, the city hall has already explained the situation in detail. The teachers in charge of teaching are the ones who taught the officials before. What does this mean? The people around him looked at him curiously. However, the bearded man was no longer in a hurry. The other man next to him rolled his eyes and immediately picked up his own wine pot and handed it over, saying, brother, you drink. How can I? The bearded man gave him a thoughtful look. He reached out and took the wine jug, then raised his head and took a big gulp. Ah! This feels good. The bearded man breathed a sigh of relief and said with an intoxicated look. You've drunk the wine. Hurry up and tell us. Someone beside him urged. What's the rush? The bearded man closed the wine jug and moved his body for the man, then said, think about it. Those teachers used to teach the officials. Now, they're teaching the students. Are they teaching the ordinary students? You're saying? A hint of surprise flashed across the faces of the surrounding people who were still somewhat at a loss. Right. The bearded man chuckled, they're recruiting probationary officials. Hiss. Hearing that the riddle had been solved, everyone sucked in a cold breath. Probationary officials, they were officials. Although the treatment of officials in Northern Town City was not as good as that of soldiers, soldiers had their risks. Look, Northern Town City is big enough. It only took 2 years. Our Grand Duke will definitely continue to expand his territory. In a few years, he will definitely build more cities. How will the officials in the city come? Won't they be trained in this school? The bearded man said with a smile. In this era, it was very difficult to cross the social class. Naturally, people were very willing to cross the social class in this way. Sulan did not expect that the establishment of his school would be interpreted in this way by these people. However, even if he knew, he would not refute the rumors. Sometimes, the more you refute a rumor, the more people would believe it. Of course, he could not say that it was a rumor. After all, if the Duchy of Northern Wind continued to expand, these people would definitely be transferred to serve as low-level officials. You think that's all? At this time, a nearby soldier who looked like a city guard said with a smile, not only that. I heard that Northern Town City will start to check all the children in the city this year. The purpose is to select children with the potential to become wizards. If your children can pass the test, I'm telling you, you'll definitely earn a lot. They have the chance to become wizards. TSK. This is a great opportunity to reach the sky in one step. I heard that there are no restrictions on the selection. As long as you live in Northern Town City, you can join. Hearing this, the others were stunned for a moment. Then, they said with joy, is that true? Of course it is. I'm going to go back and register my son. I'm going back too. For a moment, these people did not have the time to watch the performance. They turned around and left the arena. If a wizard appeared in a family, it was like reaching the sky in one step. Wizards were born to be nobles. Once they had the potential to become wizards, they would instantly become the upper class of society. For those who lived in the lower class of society, the temptation was too great. Northern Town City was full of discussions. All kinds of news spread quickly. All the topics were about the Northern Town City Academy that was about to open. As the ruler of Northern Wind Duchy, Sullen's every move had already affected the thoughts of everyone in Northern Town City. And what Su Luan had done in the past had proved himself. The people in Northern Town City followed Su Len blindly. When they heard that Su Len was going to establish the academy himself, they immediately thought that it was a very promising thing. So now, many people in Northern Town City were rubbing their hands and preparing to send their children to the academy. Even if they did not have a son, they wanted to send their talented and smart relatives to the academy. Unknowingly, the most promising group of people in Northern Town City gathered together with Sullen's simple policy. The number of talents that could be born in the future would determine how stable Northern Wind Duchy's foundation would be. The sun was scorching. The scorching sun was scorching the earth. Northern Wind Duchy kept going west. After passing through the lonely forest, the land gradually became barren. This was the trade route from Northern Wind Duchy to the western countries. To the southwest was the desert kingdom of Am. After passing through the desert kingdom was Gundor. To the north of Gundor was the Dwarven kingdom, which was a stretch of mountains. It was said that there were 3 dwarven kingdoms in this mountain range, the Iron Hill Dwarven Kingdom, the Iron Furnace Dwarven Kingdom, and the Riptide Dwarven Kingdom. The Lonely Forest was a very special place. There were some dead magic areas. To put it simply, the elemental energy in this area was very chaotic, or there was no elemental energy at all. It was difficult for spellcasters to cast spells here. There was a high chance of failure, and even if the spell was cast successfully, it would consume a lot of energy. There were many fierce beasts and some magic creatures living in this place. There were also some relics left from the Arcane Empire in this forest. It was said that this forest used to be a battlefield in the Arcane Empire. The scars caused by the battle had not been repaired until now, and there was even serious pollution left behind. Countless adventurers who wanted to get the treasures of the Arcane Empire tried to enter here, but few came back alive. Of course, there were also rumors that a god had actually fallen in the depths of the lonely forest. Of course, no one knew whether this was true or not. Some people claimed that there was a secret realm in the depths of the forest, which hid the treasures of the great arcanists. The sun was scorching, the temperature was very high, and the surrounding environment was very barren. After passing through the lonely forest, it gradually became desolate. It was a dry Gobi desert, where some gnolls and orcs lived. The cruel environment made the monsters here fierce and powerful, and there were even legendary monsters among them. The gnolls here also believed in the king of gnolls on the 422nd floor of the abyss, Jianghu. In the abyss, Jianghu was not a very powerful abyss lord, but no one could underestimate him. The king of gnolls was not alone. He also conquered another abyss lord, the king of ghouls, by force. He had been active for thousands of years under the pressure of the succubus queen and the Tauren king. Although the succubus queen and the Tauren king had other enemies, it also showed that Jianghu still had some skills. And there was a rumor that Jianghu had a powerful artifact in his hand, the time chain. Of course, this artifact was not complete. It only had 3 chain hammers. Some people said that the time chain in Jianghu's hand was just a replica. Chapter 393. It was still uncertain whether the 3-headed flail in Jianghu's hand was a divine artifact or not, but he had been searching for the parts of the flail of time to restore this powerful divine artifact. However, many people did not want this divine artifact to be restored. Whoosh! An arrow flew across the sky and instantly pierced a gnoll with khaki fur. The powerful force directly penetrated its body and sank deep into the hard Gobi desert. Su Luan shot and killed a Jackalan scout that was following him. He pulled his cloak over his body to block the sandstorm outside. Su Len did not bring anyone else out this time. It was more convenient for him to ride the Pegasus alone. The strong wind blew by, and the Pegasus shook its head and snorted. Obviously, it did not like this environment. Su Len took out a shabby parchment map from the storage space. He opened it and looked at it. The map was very simple. There was no standard way to make a map in this era. Most of the time, he could only guess while looking at it. This map was sent by a caravan. Because Su Len issued a message to buy the Battle Soul Stone, a month had passed and the caravan had not received the Battle Soul Stone. They only received this map and some news. The map recorded a ruin in the desert. It was said that in this ruin, there might be a Battle Soul Stone. It was said that this ruin was destroyed in a war. Both sides could be said to have perished together. The probability of a Battle Soul Stone being born in such a large battlefield was very high. After Su Len learned about this situation, he planned to explore the ruin himself. The deeper he went into the Gobi Desert, the fewer traces of surrounding plants there were. Some desert plants such as camel thorn struggled to grow in this cruel environment. However, as he went deeper, even camel thorns, which were tenacious plants, became fewer and fewer. In the end, the Gobi Desert became a desert. A gust of wind came out, and the yellow sand danced in the sky. There was almost no green in front of him. This was the result of the war between the Arcane Kingdom and the gods in ancient times. This was part of the main battlefield. Many once glorious cities were now buried under yellow sand. At that time, the various magic energies released by the two sides changed the world. The originally rich land became a barren desert. The rivers dried up, and the land was desertified. That desert was not the largest desert in the world. Continuing to the west, in the south of the continent, there was a vast desert that stretched for thousands of miles. It was called the Death Sand Sea. That was the largest desert. That desert was the most intense battlefield between the Arcane Kingdom and the gods. It was almost impossible to survive in the Death Sand Sea. Although thousands of years had passed, the damage caused by the war still affected the place. The elemental energy was chaotic, and there were even some spatial cracks. Some places caused by the war between the two sides. The death. Fortunately, Su Luan's target this time was not the Death Sand Sea, which was a place where even legendary masters could die if they were not careful. Although the desert Su Luan came to this time was not small, the degree of danger was not so high. Although the desert kingdom of Amh claimed that the whole desert was their territory, in fact, the area under their control was only the western and southern parts of the desert, where the desertification was not serious. There were also some large oases in the desert. As for the rest, it was occupied by various small forces. The Druids had a high status in the desert. Since the land became a desert, many Druids who believed in nature came here. They used their own power to transform the desert. They had not stopped for hundreds of years. Many oases in the desert were transformed by these Druids. Because the energy left over from the war had not dissipated, it also made the transformation of the desert difficult. These Druids were believers of the goddess of nature. It took a lot of effort to transform a desert area into an oasis. For others, crossing the desert alone was a very dangerous act, but for Su Len, it was not difficult. The most dangerous thing in the desert was to get lost and not find an oasis to resupply. Sullen's storage space was filled with all kinds of supplies, enough for him to eat for a few months. With some spells, Su Len could easily identify the direction in the desert. Su Len did not let the Pegasus fly. It was difficult to identify the position in the desert. If he wanted to find the ruins in the desert, he could only explore it bit by bit. Although the flight was fast, some things buried under the desert could not be found at all. After the Pegasus retracted its wings, its appearance was no different from an ordinary horse. However, it was enhanced and its eyes were smart. There was no need to worry about being discovered. It was a kind of self-protection. After entering the desert, Su Len walked in the desert for 2 days. Along the way, besides the yellow sand, there were some white bones. Some of the white bones looked very strange. Su Len found several camels kneeling on the ground. There were no wounds on their bodies and they did not struggle. Under the continuous sand dunes, some broken buildings were buried. These buildings were seriously damaged. Many of them could not be seen clearly. The surroundings were buried by yellow sand. It was very difficult to dig them out. Excavating the ruins in the desert needed to be careful of quicksand. As long as the sand collapsed while excavating, one could be buried alive if one was not careful. Moreover, there might not be enough rewards in these ruins. There were often all kinds of dangers in the ruins of the arcane kingdom. Su Len simply rummaged through the ruins. This was not what he was looking for. Su Len also found a lot of traces of fire around the ruins. Obviously, this ruin had been visited by many people. Even if it was excavated, it might not be able to get anything. After a simple check, Su Len rode the Pegasus and continued to move forward. When the sun set, a touch of green finally appeared in the distance. It was an oasis. After seeing the oasis, Su Len was shocked. He patted the Pegasus's neck gently. The Pegasus neighed, its four hooves flew, and it quickly galloped toward the green. How fast was the Pegasus? Although it did not gallop at full speed, the green in the distance was also expanding rapidly. Soon Su Len saw it clearly. It was a forest of haloxylon trees. Farther away, there were many poplar trees. The poplar trees were arranged neatly. Obviously, they were not naturally formed, but planted. Seeing this, Su Len knew that he had found an oasis. Although he could live in the desert, no one wanted to face the yellow sand for a long time. If there was an oasis, naturally, he would not miss it. As the Pegasus approached quickly, a broken city wall made of sand and stone appeared in front of him. The city wall was not high, about 6 or 7 meters. The city wall was severely weathered. Some people were coming in and out of the city gate. Some caravans led camels into the city. Although the oasis was not very big and the city wall was dilapidated, it was very prosperous inside. There were many caravans coming and going. Su Len saw many merchants hawking on the street. The buildings in the city were also made of sand and stone. They looked rough. Su Len dismounted and led the Pegasus slowly to the city. The inspection of the city was not strict. Several soldiers stood at the door. A fat tax officer was checking and recording with a pen. A caravan leader nodded and bowed to the tax officer. Su Len saw that when the two of them bowed, the merchant nimbly put a heavy bag of money into the tax officer's arms. After the tax officer felt the heavy bag in his arms, he waved his hand in satisfaction and let the caravan enter. Su Len slowly followed behind the caravan. Soon, after a simple inspection, they finally entered the city. There were people from all over the continent in this city. They were communicating with each other in different accents. Fortunately, Su Len had the ability to understand languages. This was the power given to him by his divinity. With the ability to understand languages, Su Len could communicate with any intelligent creature. In fact, other than understanding languages, there was also a spell called all-night writing. However, this spell was not commonly used. Only wizards could learn it. This spell was often used in ruins exploration. There were too many types of ancient writing. Even wizards could not remember all of them. The most eye-catching things in the city were the domes. The domes looked like big peaches. This was the unique architectural style of the desert area. In the center of the domes, there was a tall metal pointer. In the center of the city was the desert temple. At the top of the temple, there was a golden sun. In the sun, there was a pattern similar to an eye. That was the Church of the Sun God. The clergy of the Sun God had always been an important field of competition among the gods. Almost every divine system would have a god involved in the sun. Every god named Sun God was very powerful. In this world alone, there were 3 gods involved in the sun, the Lord of Dawn, the Lord of Light, and the God of Sky and Sunday. The temple in front of them was the church of the god of space and sun in the desert divine system. This was a powerful god. He was involved in the fields of the sun, protection, and revenge. This was a god of the neutral camp. He had the most followers in the desert divine system. The desert divine system was an outsider during the time of the ancient arcane kingdom. It was said that their original world was destroyed for some reason and they had to leave. Many of these people were slaves captured by the arcane kingdom. The relationship between the desert divine system and other divine systems was not harmonious. There was a fierce war between the 2 sides. However, the desert divine system only lived in the desert and did not expand. The 2 sides finally reached a tacit understanding. There were often various battles between the other gods on the continent. The desert divine system had always been watching coldly. Su Len found a clean hotel in the city to stay. Then he arranged the Pegasus and went to the nearby tavern to inquire about the news. It was very difficult to find a place in the desert. After all, there was no obvious reference in the desert. Sometimes after a sandstorm, the environment would change greatly. It was not easy to determine the location of the ruins. There were often caravans passing through the desert. These people walked in the desert all year round and knew a lot of information. Chapter 394. It wasn't a simple task to excavate relics in the desert. In a desert environment like this, if there weren't any professionals, one would be buried if the sand was dug too deep. Other than a guide, Su Len also needed to hire a group of workers to help him excavate the ruins. This oasis city was called Halta, which meant outpost. It was the first oasis to enter and exit the desert. Caravans and adventurers from all over the world could be seen here. Every year, monks would come here to travel or do ascetic practices. In order to temper their will, many martial monks would deliberately go to some areas with extremely harsh environments to practice on foot. Su Luen saw several bald heads in the city. Most of these monks were wearing old clothes, and their hands were covered with calluses. Although they did not wear heavy armor or weapons, none of them were below grade 3. Most of these monks had made the poverty oath. Many of them wanted to become ascetics, but only a few succeeded in the end. Su Luen walked through the bustling street and wandered alone in the streets and alleys here. His eyes swept around from time to time. Soon he found his target here. It was a tavern. Outside the tavern, a shabby sign was waving in the wind, Shadow Howl. The tavern was not in a very good location, and the outside was also shabby. A few rats scurried through the garbage next to it. Su Len frowned and walked into the alley. He came to the tavern's door and pushed it open. When the door of the tavern was pushed open, a burst of noise immediately came out. Unlike the outside, the inside of the tavern was very lively. What surprised Su Luen the most was that there were more than a dozen maids in revealing clothes here. The tavern was full. The guests were toasting and drinking loudly. Among these guests, there were mercenaries, dwarves, thieves, and even desert bandits. Su Luen also saw some orcs and barbarians. The maids were like butterflies flying around the tables. From time to time, there would be 1 or 2 screams and laughter, followed by a series of curses. There was no need to guess. A cup of Heart of Flames, please. Su Len sat down on the bar counter and tossed an AR over. His arrival attracted the attention of some people around him. Su Len didn't look like a mercenary. In a dark corner, a few eyes glanced back and forth at Su Len's clothes and money bag from time to time, judging whether this person was a fat sheep, whether he was strong or not, and whether he was worth their time. In the corner of the tavern, there were several figures hidden in the darkness. They were shadow dancers, an advanced class of rogues. They were proficient in assassination and liked to use curved swords and daggers. They were the best assassins and assassins. As long as they were paid well, there was no one they didn't dare to kill. Of course, daring to kill and being able to kill were two different things. A few fierce-looking desert swordsmen with scars on their faces glanced at Su Len from time to time. This was a profession unique to the desert. They used scimitars, worked with agility, and attacked very quickly. At this time, one of the swordsmen was shaving with a knife. His eyes fell on Su Len's bulging pocket from time to time, and a trace of uncontrollable greed flashed in his eyes from time to time. As soon as Su Len entered the tavern, he felt the malicious gazes around him. Even the human mercenaries were secretly communicating with each other. The Shadow Wailing Tavern belonged to the dark corner of the city. It was said that the tavern was supported by the Shadow Brotherhood. The Shadow Brotherhood was also notorious on the continent. Your heart of flames. A scantily dressed maid put a glass of strong liquor in front of Su Len. She even deliberately sat on his lap with a big, white, and soft peach. The pair of huge breasts in front of her chest almost hit his face. Her eyes were hot and full of provocation. Her small tongue licked her bright red lips as if she was looking at a delicious food. Su Len took the wine glass. He was not interested in this maid. Although this body had a good figure and was beautiful, Su Len, who had been spoiled for a long time, did not like to be with others. Moreover, the strong dark aura showed that this woman was either a vampire or a sucking demoness. She was not only lusting after his body, but also his life essence. After casually sending her away, Su Len picked up the wine glass and drank it in one gulp. This heart of flames was made with vodka and a few other spices. Drinking it was like drinking fire. When he put down the glass, he used a little force, and the glass was slightly dented. The bar counter of the tavern was made of iron oak wood. It was tough and sturdy. After seeing Su Len casually use the glass to leave a dent on the table, the people who had been watching him looked away. Although these people in the tavern were not good people, they still had good eyesight. They knew what they were capable of and what kind of enemies they could not provoke. If they did not have good eyesight, they would not have survived. They would have been buried in the endless sandstorm outside the city. I want to ask for some information. Su Len's fingers tapped rhythmically on the bar counter. Sir, what information do you want to ask for? The tavern owner looked at the glass on the table. A hint of fear flashed through his eyes. Have you found any ancient ruins around this city recently? Su Len asked. The tavern owner shook his head. This is the periphery of the desert. There are very few ruins. No new ruins have been found in the past 3 years. Su Len nodded and continued to ask, you should have a map of this desert, right? I want a detailed map of this place. The oases and cities need to be marked on the map. Sure, but the price. The tavern owner heard Su Len's words and made an international gesture. How much? Su Len smiled. If he could solve it with money, then he would solve it with money. The tavern owner gestured with his hand. 50 kinnar. Not only are there oases and cities marked on the map, but there are also some ruins. Sure. Su Len took out a bag and threw it on the bar counter. The sound of metal hitting metal came from the bag. This is the down payment. If I am satisfied with the map, I will give you the rest. The tavern owner reached out and grabbed the bag. He weighed it in his hand. There were at least 20 kinnar inside. The crisp and melodious sound of gold coins colliding attracted the attention of some people around. Their eyes, which had been turned away, once again looked at Su Len, but not as blatantly as before. The tavern owner looked satisfied and put away the bag. He got up and went into the room. After a while, he came out with a piece of parchment. This is the map you asked for. It should meet your requirements. Su Len took the parchment and opened it. All the cities and most of the oases in the desert were marked on the parchment. There were even many ruins marked on it. Su Len compared this map with the strategic map in his system. There were no mistakes. He nodded with satisfaction. The map he bought before only marked the approximate location of the ruins. With this more accurate map, it would be much easier to find the ruins. Not bad. This is your reward. Su Len nodded and put away the map. He threw a bag of money to the tavern owner and got up to leave. Just as Su Len left, a few people quietly followed him. With the map in hand, Su Len didn't need to stay here. He planned to go to the ruins as soon as possible. But before that, he needed to recruit some people. After all, how long would it take for him to excavate the ruins alone? It was easy to hire people in this desert city. Compared to other areas, the people at the bottom of the desert had a harder time. Adventurers Guild. Su Len saw many professionals here. Although the desert was dangerous, there were a lot of ruins buried in it. If they could bring something out of the ruins, they could easily sell it for a good price. Therefore, many adventurers liked to come here. "Sir, how may I help you?" A young man appeared in front of Su Len. Judging from his clothes, he was the receptionist of the Adventurers Guild. "I need to recruit some people." Su Len looked at the receptionist and said, "You want to issue a mission? Please come with me." Hearing Su Len's words, the receptionist's eyes lit up. He led Su Len to an office desk. After Su Len sat down, the receptionist smiled and said, "Sir, what mission do you want to issue?" "This is a form. You can fill it out." Su Len took the form and looked at it. Then, he filled it out according to his requirements. After a few minutes, he finished filling out the form and handed it to the receptionist. Exploring ancient ruins? You need 200 people to excavate? You also need an adventurer team. The difficulty of this mission has reached the A level. You need to pay at least 2,000 kinnar. Do you agree? The receptionist looked at the form Su Len filled out and said, 2,000 gold nars, huh? Yes. Su Len nodded and said, "Since you agree, we will publish the mission information as soon as possible. Please tell us your contact address. If someone takes the mission, we will send someone to inform you." Su Len left 100 kinnar as a deposit, then left the address of the hotel. He turned and left the Adventurers Guild. It would take some time to recruit people. Su Len intended to study some maps while he still had time. He now had 2 maps in his hand. Su Len intended to combine these 2 maps with the map in his system to find the exact location of the ruins he was looking for. At the same time, he also had to prepare some tools needed for the exploration of the ruins. Although these underground ruins had been buried for thousands of years, as the ruins left from the era of the Arcane Empire, Su Len would not be careless. The desert environment was harsh, but being buried by sand was also a kind of protection. There were likely to be a lot of mechanisms and traps inside. Chapter 395. After sending off Su Len, the staff member of the Adventurers Union took the mission list to the back of the hall and handed it to a one-eyed man. The one-eyed man glanced at it and asked in a deep voice, "What mission?" "Ruins exploration." Looking at the requirements, it should be a large ruins. The staff member handed over the mission list. "Ha!" The one-eyed man sneered with a hint of mockery in his eyes. "Ancient ruins exploration? If these ruins were so easy to explore, would we leave them to them? Maybe they're strong enough?" The staff member next to him said with a smile. "Then I wish them good luck. Just post it. 2,000 kinnar. This is not a small number. We can earn a commission." The one-eyed man shrugged and handed the mission list back. A few minutes later, an important mission appeared on the mission bulletin board. An A-level mercenary mission might not appear in a month, so naturally, it was hung in the most conspicuous place. A-level mercenary mission. Ancient ruins exploration. Recruiting 200 excavators. Recruiting experienced veterans. The minimum reward is 2,000 kinnar. The reward is quite generous, but the risk is a bit high. 2,000 kinnar. You can take it but not spend it. The mission board quickly attracted everyone's attention, but after seeing that the mission was to explore ancient ruins, many people chose to give up directly. Adventurers and mercenaries who often wandered in the desert knew the risks of exploring ancient ruins. Although the reward was generous, not many people were willing to sign up. There were not many who were sure that they could enter the ancient ruins and come out unscathed. It looks good. I'm a little short on money now. I can go and talk to him, a rogue hidden in a brown cloak said in a deep voice. 2,000 kinnar. A high-level warrior tidied up his armor and got up to check the bulletin board. At noon the next day, Su Len recruited some people. A high-level rogue, a high-level warrior, and a dwarf heavy armored warrior. Including Su Len, there were a total of 4 people. As for wizards and warlocks, there were few spellcasters in the Adventurers' Union. Moreover, 2,000 kinnar was not attractive to spellcasters, let alone high-level priests and druids. In addition to these 3 people, the 200 workers recruited by Su Len were also recruited. After a simple meeting and discussion, Su Len's adventurer team left the city with a large number of materials on the morning of the 3rd day. 200 workers, 50 camels loaded with goods, and 3 high-level professions, led by Su Len, set out into the depths of the desert. Yellow sand filled the sky. The long team moved slowly in the desert. The speed of the team was not fast. The physical fitness of those ordinary people could not be compared with Su Len's at all. In this environment, the consumption of physical strength was very high. The deeper they went into the desert, the stronger the wind and sand. Sometimes, they would encounter terrible sandstorms. The feeling of covering the sky and covering the earth made even Su Len feel scared. Fortunately, there was a strategic map in the system, which found sandstorms in advance, giving them enough time to prepare and successfully avoided sandstorms. Of course, compared to the sandstorm, the quicksand was also very dangerous. The sand looked no different from ordinary sand, but once one stepped on it, they would quickly sink. If there was no rescue in time, they would soon be buried alive in the sand. In order to prevent people from accidentally falling into the quicksand, the workers used ropes to connect the people around them. This way, even if they fell into the quicksand, they would be held back by others. Su Len rode back and forth in the team. 50 camels carried a lot of materials. The weather was hot, and the whole team was very tired. "Captain, the weather is too hot. We need to take a rest." A rogue who was scouting outside came to Su Len's side and said, "I hate sand." Valadin the dwarf said in a muffled voice. He was a mountain dwarf, 53 years old this year. He had strong muscles and liked liquor. Su Len only used half a bottle of vodka to become good friends with him. Because of the dwarf's weight and armor, it was very difficult for him to walk in the desert. If he was not careful, his heavy body would fall into the sand. Moreover, the iron armor on his body would often have sand get into it. Coupled with the sweat on his body, it was even more uncomfortable for the sand to stick to his body. Su Len looked at the tired people, then nodded and said, "Let's go to the back of the sand dune in front to rest. It can shelter us from the sun. Everyone, work harder. We can rest when we reach the sand dune in front." The leader of the craftsmen shouted. After hearing the voice of the craftsman, the artificial people were refreshed and immediately quickened their pace. The human rogue was called Baron. He often wandered in the desert area. His weapons were curved swords and crossbows. As for the warrior, he was a local adventurer named Jane. He was good at two-handed swords. His strength was average, but he was very experienced. About 10 minutes later, the team came to the back of the sand dune and then began to rest. People took out their own food and water to replenish. Su Len took out the sheepskin map and compared it to see if the team's route had deviated. At this time, some red light spots suddenly appeared on his strategic map. There were about 50 people in the light spots, and they were moving quickly toward their current position. Desert bandits? Seeing the red light spots, Su Len frowned slightly. He did not find anyone watching them in the past 2 days. How did these desert bandits find them so accurately? Screech! There was an eagle's cry in the sky. Su Len looked up and saw a goshawk hovering over the team and then flying away. An eagle. Su Len immediately understood. It was obvious that these desert bandits were using falcons to watch them. If the northern town city could tame falcons, then other people could tame falcons as well. Guards! Su Len put away the map and shouted. Sir, what can I do for you? The leader of the craftsmen ran over and asked. Desert bandits are coming. Everyone, immediately form a circle around the camels. Craftsmen, go into the circle and hide, Su Len said in a deep voice. Desert bandits? Hearing the word desert bandits, the leader of the craftsmen's face changed drastically. As someone who lived in this area of the desert, he was very familiar with the desert bandit style. These desert bandits often robbed caravans. Their methods were cruel. They usually rode fast horses and held scimitars in their hands. Like a whirlwind, they rushed up to kill. Their speed was fast, and they did not leave anyone alive. They also did not negotiate. It could be said that they were notorious. Get up. Everyone, form a circle around the camels. The desert bandits are coming. Move fast. The team that was resting immediately exploded. One by one, they jumped up from the sand and pulled the camels into a circle. They took out all kinds of bows and spears and were ready to fight. After hearing that the desert bandits were coming, the 3 advanced professionals picked up their weapons and went to Su Len to discuss it. Should we just run away? The rogue glanced at the workers not far away and said. As an adventurer who often moved around here, he clearly knew the strength of the desert bandits. Although there were only 40 to 50 of them, the weakest among them was still at grade 1. Among them, the leader of the desert bandits was a high-grade professional. There were only 4 of them. Facing so many desert bandits was simply courting death. As for the workers, they basically could not count on them. No need. Su Len shook his head. After seeing their expressions, Su Len continued, when the desert bandits come later, you are responsible for protecting the workers. Leave the rest to me. This. The 3 of them looked at each other. A cloud of dust rose in the distant sky, followed by the rapid sound of horse hooves. Dozens of masked desert bandits quickly approached from the other side of the dune. When they were about 500 or 600 meters away, the desert bandits divided into 2 teams to surround them from the left and right, directly choking off the team's retreat. Kill. The notorious desert bandits did not hesitate at all. Under the command of the desert bandit leader, the rest of the desert bandits waved their scimitars and rushed up. Some of the desert bandits attacked from the side, while the others took out their bows and arrows to shoot. After walking in the desert for so long, I can finally move my body. Speed looked at the desert bandits rushing up and moved his shoulders. Then, he tapped the horse's abdomen and the Pegasus instantly accelerated. The storm halberd also appeared in his hand at this moment. He's crazy. Seeing Su Len rushing directly to dozens of desert bandits, the other 3 advanced professionals' faces changed greatly. The speed of the Pegasus was amazing. In just a few breaths, Su Len was about to meet the desert bandits. The arrows shot by the desert bandits were directly left behind. Clang! Accompanied by the sound of metal clashing, Su Len waved his storm halberd and instantly cut off the head of a desert bandit. Even the scimitar in his hand was broken into 2 pieces. The Pegasus' speed did not decrease at all. Su Len waved his storm halberd and rushed forward. In an instant, the halberd swept across. Accompanied by the whine of the horse and the sound of metal clashing, all the desert bandits who alternated with Su Len were cut down one by one. Storm! Su Len waved his hands and the storm halberd was like a wheel. The power of thunder and storm on the storm halberd also burst out. Streams of chi were like sword chi, instantly killing the 4 desert bandits around him. Then, the halberd was waved again and again. Light blades flew out and directly killed the desert bandits in the distance. Quick, shoot the arrows, kill him. Seeing that his men had suffered heavy casualties as soon as they came into contact, the leader of the desert bandits panicked and hurriedly ordered the archers to focus fire. However, the arrows were useless against Su Len. He waved his halberd and deflected the arrows that were shot at him. The Pegasus accelerated again and directly dodged the sound of the rain of arrows. Then, it quickly rushed to the remaining desert bandits. Seeing that the arrows were useless, the remaining desert bandits quickly threw down their bows and grabbed their scimitars, ready to attack. Just before the desert bandits could react, Su Len had already rushed directly into them like a tiger in a flock of sheep. Chapter 396. Clang! Clang! Blood splattered everywhere, and the sound of metal clashing continued. Su Len rushed into the group of desert bandits like a hot knife through butter. One enemy after another was beheaded. Su Len quickly brandished his storm war halberd like a reaper. Every move he made would take the life of an enemy. None of the dead bodies were intact. Wherever he passed, there were broken limbs everywhere on the ground. This bloody and cruel scene made even the desert bandits, who killed without blinking, feel scared. Some of them even turned their horses and fled when they saw Su Len rushing up like a killing god. But how could Su Len let go of these bandits who robbed him? He waved the storm war halberd and 3 crescent-shaped light blades flashing with thunder flew out in an instant. Half Moon/X3. The speed of the light blade was very fast, and 100 meters was covered in the blink of an eye. The light blade drew a straight line in the sand and instantly hit the desert bandit who was running away. The bandit was cut in half along with his horse before he could react. The remaining 2 light blades directly swept through the gathered desert bandits. Wherever the 2 light blades passed, all the desert bandits in front of them were all cut in half. In the blink of an eye, the light blades swept through the desert bandits like plowing through a hole in a courtyard. Seeing the tragic death of their companions, the rest of the desert bandits could no longer bear the pressure. They screamed and fled in all directions. But it was too late. The Pegasus was like a bolt of lightning, leaving a phantom on the sand dunes. It caught up with the desert bandits in a breath and was easily harvested by Su Len. More than 50 bandits were finally killed by Su Len. Only 2 bandits who Su Len deliberately left behind for interrogation survived. Swoosh! The storm war halberd pierced the 2 bandits' thighs into the sand between them. The 2 bandits who had already become frightened could not help but tremble. A fishy smell wafted over. Do you want to live? Su Len looked at the 2 bandits and revealed his white teeth. But in the eyes of the 2 bandits, this was simply the smile of the devil. Yes. The 2 bandits nodded repeatedly. Then tell me the location of your desert bandits' lair and where the treasures that you have plundered are. I, Johnson, will spare your pathetic lives. Don't even think about lying to me. I'll make you guys talk separately. If I get a different answer, then I'll let him have a taste of what it's like to live a life worse than death. Su Len smiled at the 2 desert bandits and pretended to say casually, I wonder how this desert weather would be for drying dried meat. Which one of you is willing to give it a try? Sir, I'll tell you. I know where Varfa hid the treasure, please let me go, sir, don't listen to me. I'm Vir Fa's confidant. I know all of Vir Fa's treasures. Please believe me. In order to survive, the two desert bandits scrambled to tell Su Len the location of their nest and their treasures. Su Len smiled as he lifted one of the desert bandits and asked him to tell him everything he knew. Then, he used the same method to make the other desert bandit tell him everything he knew. After confirming that there were no mistakes, Su Len brought the two desert bandits back. At this time, the three high-grade professionals had already ordered the workers to clean up the battlefield. All the war horses and weapons had been collected. Other than the dead and injured horses, there were still 32 horses that were intact. After the battle just now, whether it was those craftsmen or the other three senior professions, they all looked at Su Luen with awe in their eyes. Even the loud-mouthed Valadin became more careful when he spoke. "I've found the location of the bandits' nest. It's not far from here. I'm going to make a trip there," Su Len said to the three of them. The others naturally had no objections to this. Then Su Luen asked the two desert bandits to take the crowd to the nest of the desert bandits, which was about 30 kilometers away in a straight line. It was a very small oasis. Although it was called an oasis, it was actually a gathering place. There were only a few houses made of khaki-colored rocks in the yellow sand. After entering the room, Su Len was surprised to find that the space inside was very large. It looked like an ancient ruin, but the ruin was severely damaged. Only the underground hall in front of him was left. The temperature of the underground hall was comfortable. There was also a well and an underground river flowing through the well, so there was no shortage of water. This place could be said to be very hidden. As long as the hole was blocked, no one would be able to find it. As long as there was enough food, the desert bandits could live here for a few months. Seeing that there was a water source here, the whole team became excited. They had been walking in the desert for 2 days. When they saw a large amount of water, they immediately ran over to drink and refilled their water bags. After arriving at the nest of the desert bandits, Su Len asked the two desert bandits to dig out the treasures they had hidden here. Soon, a pile of gold, silver, and jewelry was piled up in front of them. After looking at it, although there was a lot of gold, silver, and jewelry in front of them, Su Len estimated that it was worth at most 5,000 to 6,000 kinnar. He did not believe that these notorious desert bandits only had so much treasure. "Looks like you won't cry until you see the coffin." The storm war halberd stabbed into the ground. The hard ground instantly cracked like a spider web. The two desert bandits were so frightened that they quickly knelt and kowtowed to beg for mercy. "Sir, this is really all the treasure. We didn't hide a single kinnar. Sir, please spare us. We've already dug out all the treasures." "All the treasures?" Su Len snorted coldly. He reached out and lifted one of the desert bandits up. "All the treasures? As far as I know, you've been here for at least 10 years. 10 years, this is all you've taken? Sir, please spare us. This is really all we have. The rest was given to the nobles in Halta. The goods we robbed were sold to them. The nobles took half of it, and the rest was used to buy food and weapons." Su Len casually threw the bandit to the ground. He knew that these desert bandits were not lying. Caravans would not carry large amounts of gold, silver, and jewelry for trade. These desert bandits must have needed to sell the goods after robbing. Only the nobles in Halta had the ability to swallow the goods. The reason why these desert bandits had been active for so long without being killed was probably because of the nobles' connivance. "Since you found the treasures, you can go now." Su Len waved his hand and said. The two desert bandits' eyes flashed with surprise. They then turned and ran out. However, just as they ran less than 10 meters, 2 arrows flew out in an instant and hit them in the middle of their backs. "You!" One of the bandits' body instantly stiffened. He looked at Su Len with eyes full of hatred, then his body went limp and fell to the ground. "What are you looking at? It was Johnson who killed you." "What does it have to do with me, Su Len?" Su Len casually put away the bow and arrow, then put the pile of gold, silver, and jewelry in front of him into his storage space. 5 or 6,000 kinner was enough for him to pay the commission this time. After a night's rest in the bandits' nest, the team set off for the desert ruins again the next morning. But this time, there were no more desert bandits. After 2 days, Su Len and the others finally arrived at their destination. There was a landmark here, an obelisk. The obelisk was about 30 meters tall, with a large number of patterns, pictures, and words carved on it. However, the obelisk in front of them was broken. The pictures and words on it had been eroded by the wind and sand. This is it. Su Len looked at the map and compared it with the surrounding environment. He said in a low voice, "Tell the workers to set up camp and get ready to work." Under Sullen's orders, part of the workers set up camp, and the other part began to clean up the sand in the ruins. The ruins had been buried for thousands of years. Su Len did not know the door to the ruins, so he could only clean up the surroundings. The workers took out all kinds of attacks and began to clean up the sand. Because there were 50 camels and more than 30 horses, the cleaning work went smoothly. Be careful, pay attention to the reinforcement. I don't want to be buried in the ruins. The 200 workers began to get busy. It was not easy to find the entrance to the ruins. Fortunately, the leader of the craftsmen was very experienced in excavating these ancient ruins. He knew that there were a few locations in these ruins that had a high probability of being the entrance. The workers began to dig at these locations. Excavating the ruins was not a simple job. Because this was a desert area, if they wanted to dig a passage, they had to clean up all the surrounding sand. Otherwise, the sand would continue to slide down and block the passage. Su Len supervised the workers for a while, then let the others supervise them. He rode his Pegasus and began to wander around the ruins to see if there were any abnormalities. He did not want to spend so much effort to dig out the ruins, only to be picked up by someone else. The sky gradually darkened and the bonfire rose. The workers who had been digging for the whole day returned to the camp to rest and eat. Su Len also rode his Pegasus back to the camp. There were no traces of other people around the ruins. It seemed that after he exterminated the desert bandits, those spies had left. However, Su Len was not careless. After dinner, the workers who had worked hard for the whole day returned to their tents to sleep. Su Len and the other 3 professionals took turns to keep watch. The temperature of the desert at night was very low, and from time to time, there would be gusts of wind blowing by. Lying by the bonfire, he looked up at the starry sky. The starry sky in the desert was very beautiful, there were no dark clouds in the night sky, and countless stars twinkled in the night sky. Su Len knew that those stars were not just stars, other than some ordinary celestial bodies in the starry sky. Some of the stars were actually projections of the divine kingdoms of the gods, so there was a legend in this world that when the stars in the starry sky fell, it represented the fall of a god. Chapter 397. After eating sand for half the night, it was Baines and Jane's turn to keep watch. The two sat in front of the campfire, drinking and chatting. Su Len glanced at them and went back to his tent to rest. The night passed quickly. The next day, as soon as the sun rose, the workers were already called to work. The temperature in the desert was very high. If they did a lot of work during the day, it was very likely that they would get heatstroke. Therefore, they had to get up early to work, and then go back to rest when the weather was the hottest. They would continue working in the afternoon when the weather was not so hot. The 200 workers were digging in several places, but after digging to a certain depth, they found that these places were not the entrance. After a day of digging, there were only 2 places left that the leader of the craftsmen had designated. On the 3rd day, the workers continued to dig. When there were only 2 places left, the digging speed was much faster than the previous 2 days. Ah! Monster! Suddenly, there was a scream, and then several professionals rushed up. The workers who were digging on the site ran in all directions, trying to hide from something. For a moment, it was very chaotic. Sullen's body flashed, and the storm war halberd appeared in his hand. He asked in a deep voice, "What happened?" "Mummies. It's mummies." A worker answered Sulen. At this time, he was panicking and wanted to escape. Mummies were a kind of undead creatures unique to the desert. Compared to ordinary undead, mummies moved much faster and had high defense. Although the layer of shroud on their body looked tattered, its defense was higher than leather armor. However, they also had a weakness, which was their low resistance to fire. Sulen left the frightened worker and appeared at the edge of the sandpit in a flash. At this time, a mummy wrapped in linen was about to pounce on a worker. This mummy was still relatively intact, but now its body had completely withered and decayed. The skin exposed under the linen cloth was black and surrounded by a foul stench. The bandages wrapped around its body were yellowed, and the shriveled skin clung tightly to its body. Its bloody mouth was wide open, and there were sharp black nails on its fingers. At first glance, one could tell that it was highly toxic. Sulen jumped and appeared next to the mummy in an instant. He kicked the mummy away. Looking at the mummy, Sulen frowned slightly. The kick just now gave him a strange feeling. It was like kicking a hard stone. Bang! The sound of a violent collision was heard. The mummy that was sent flying crashed into the sand, but it did not cause any damage. In the next second, the mummy quickly flipped over. These mummies' shriveled bodies contained an astonishing amount of strength. "All workers, retreat." At this moment, a few more mummies rushed out of the hole that had been dug. At the same time, Barn, Jane, and the dwarf warrior also rushed over. After seeing the mummies, they rushed up directly. For a moment, the mummies were forced to retreat. However, at this moment, a powerful aura of death suddenly came from the entrance of the cave. A mummy shrouded in the aura of death rushed out. This mummy was different from the other mummies. It had a pair of red eyes and a metal mask on its head. Its body was obviously much bigger than the other mummies. Its sickle-like hands had amazing destructive power. Its body was emitting a strong negative energy. Poisonous mummy. Seeing this mummy, the rogue immediately shouted. The toxic mummy was a powerful monster. Aside from having great strength and the plague effect on their attacks, they also had the ability to revive other mummies. They were very difficult monsters to deal with, and their challenge rating was at level 16. Sulen moved and rushed up in an instant. At the moment when the two sides clashed, the storm war halberd felt like it had pierced rubber. Sulen directly kicked the poisonous mummy away. Sulen frowned slightly. A strange energy wanted to invade his body, but as soon as it got close, it was directly rejected by his body. Don't get too close to Hector. The poisonous mummy can spread diseases. Barn, the rogue next to him, reminded. Sulen nodded and rushed up again. With his vitality, the negative state of the poisonous mummy could not cause any damage. Thunder Spear. The powerful power of thunder and lightning appeared on the storm war halberd. The storm war halberd was full of thunder and lightning, and fiercely hit the poisonous mummy. The power of thunder and lightning broke out, and the negative energy on the poisonous mummy dissipated. Sullen's whole body turned into a shadow, and the storm war halberd in his hand kept attacking. For a time, the poisonous mummy's body was full of thunder and lightning. The poisonous mummy was not slow, and it was not much slower than the average rogue. Unfortunately, it was now facing Sulen, a high-grade legend, and its reaction speed was not enough. The poisonous mummy didn't fight back. After Sulen sped up, the poisonous mummy was completely beaten up. The poisonous mummy was attacked by Sulen more than a dozen times in a short time, but it did not even touch Sullen's clothes. The poisonous mummy was extremely angry, and it roared again and again, but there was nothing it could do. While Sulen was besieging the poison mummy, more mummies rushed out of the dug hole. Bane, Jane, and Valadin fought while retreating. Although these mummies were no match for them individually, they had no choice but to dodge the fearless attacks of a dozen mummies. After all, they were not undead creatures like the mummies. After seeing this situation, Sulan could not leave it alone. The poisonous mummy had thick skin, and Sulan could not kill it in a short time. However, the other mummies could not. Fireball. The orange-red fireball quickly took shape, and then flew directly into the mummies that were besieging the three. Boom! With a loud bang, flames rose, and instantly wrapped several mummies around it. The mummy that was directly hit was directly blown to pieces, and the other mummies were also ignited and turned into human-shaped torches. These mummies were like dry wood covered with grease. The flames burned bigger and bigger, and there was no way to put it out. Soon, they were burned into a pile of charcoal. The air was filled with the unpleasant stench of corpses. With nearly a third of the mummies gone, the pressure on the three was instantly reduced. Sulan swung his storm battle halberd again, and the powerful lightning energy dissipated the poisonous mummy's aura. The mummy's tall body kept retreating. Just as Sulan was about to rush up and finish off the poisonous mummy, a thick ray of negative energy suddenly flew out of the mummy's mouth. Sulan dodged it. The black ray of negative energy hit the mummy that had just been burned into charcoal. The next moment, an aura of death erupted, and the mummy that had turned into charcoal was resurrected. Undead resurrection. After resurrecting one mummy, the poisonous mummy did not stop. It was ready to resurrect another mummy. Sulan naturally would not give it another chance. His body flashed, and the storm battle halberd with powerful lightning energy instantly hit the poisonous mummy. The poisonous mummy in front of him stiffened, and then the bandages that were wrapped around its body were torn apart, and the aura of death that was gathering dissipated directly. Sulan took the opportunity to attack like a storm, and did not give the poisonous mummy any chance to fight back. The poisonous mummy kept retreating, and the negative energy around its body was mostly dispersed. Then, the storm battle halberd ruthlessly cut the poisonous mummy in half. A wave of aura of death spread out from the poisonous mummy, and then slowly disappeared. The poisonous mummy's body that was left on the ground was instantly set ablaze. The flames rose as if turpentine had been added, and quickly burned the poisonous mummy's body into ashes. Without the poisonous mummy, the rest of the ordinary mummies were easier to deal with. Soon, all the mummies were burned to ashes. Sulan bent down and picked up a purple crystal from the ashes of the poisonous mummy. It was a high-level soul crystal. Sulan would not mind having more of it. Hathaway was preparing to build an army of golems, and it was just right for her. The battle ended quickly, and all the mummies around were killed. However, there were still casualties among the workers. A worker's throat was bitten when the mummy appeared, and now he could not be more dead. Since he was killed by the mummy, there was a strong aura of negative energy in his body. If he did not find a priest to purify it, it was very likely that he would be resurrected as an undead creature. Naturally, there was no priest here. The best way was to cremate him. After killing the mummy, Sulan called the workers back again. The workers did not run far. The desert was hundreds of miles away, and the workers did not have the strength to run back. After dealing with these things, Sulan prepared to enter the ruins. The workers had already dug out a passage. The ruins were very dangerous, and ordinary people would die if they entered. Therefore, they had to clean up the place first before continuing to excavate. Bane, Jane, Valadin, come with me. The rest of you wait above. There should be a lot of monsters in the ruins. Let's go down and clean them up. Let's go, I want to let those skeletons have a taste of my axe. Valadin said as he waved his battle axe. Bring torches, those undead creatures are afraid of fire. Bane took out a few torches and kerosene and handed them over. We should be the first group to enter the ruins. There should be a lot of good stuff in there. Jane said excitedly. Those who dared to take the risk to explore the ruins were basically here for the treasure. According to the usual practice, the treasures found in the ruins would be divided. Su Len could take a little more, and the others, including the workers, would get a share. It was just that some people had more than others. Hehe, be careful when you go down. Don't get yourself into trouble before you earn any money. When the time comes, even if I want to share the treasure with you, you have to be able to get it. Su Len said in a deep voice. Chapter 398. Don't worry, I'm not a rookie. I'm the great dwarf explorer, Valadin. The dwarven juggernaut patted his chest and said, and my armor will protect me from harm. I hope so. Su Len shrugged. Soon, the workers cleared all the sand and stones piled up at the entrance of the passage. Su Len nodded to the three and said, let's begin. After that, Su Len snapped his fingers and summoned a gust of wind that blew into the passage. Then, 10 seconds later, a gust of wind rushed out with a foul and decaying smell. Okay, you can go in now. After the foul air in the passage was sucked out, Su Len gestured to the workers next to him. Then, the workers came over with various tools. Supports, pulleys, ropes, torches, hooks, medicine, bandages. After all the preparations were completed, Sullen's figure flashed, and he slid down the passage with one hand holding the rope. The entrance of the cave was about 10 meters away from the entrance of the passage. After Su Len came to the passage, he looked around. With dark vision, he could see normally in the dark. He did not find any danger in the passage. He lit the torch and fixed it on the wall next to him. Su Len then shouted, "It's safe, you can come down now." The second to come down was Bane the rogue. The agile Bane grabbed the rope and slid down quickly. When he was 3 meters away from the ground, he landed firmly on the ground after a light flip. "Hey, excuse me, I'm coming down." At this moment, Valadin's voice came from above. Bane took 2 steps back and said, "Okay, you can come down now." As soon as his voice fell, a black shadow fell from above. Whoosh! Duang! The dwarven juggernaut landed with a dull thud. Damn it, I hate falling. The dwarf in heavy armor shook his head, then grabbed his battle axe and stood up from the ground. His heavy armor was at least 50 pounds. An ordinary person would not be able to withstand such a height. "Buddy, you should be gentle. This is the ruins. Don't wake those guys up," Bane reminded him. However, Valadin wasn't too bothered. "Don't worry. If those skeletons dare to wake up, my axe won't mind killing them again." Soon, Jane also came down from above, and all 4 of them were present. Next, the few of them walked into the depths of the passage with torches in hand. There were many well-preserved murals on the walls on both sides of the passage, which recorded the construction of the city ruins. In the corner of the passage, there were many bottles and jars. Valadin seemed to be interested in those jars. He opened them and took a look, only to find that the contents had long rotted, leaving only a pile of black stuff. At this moment, Su Len suddenly heard a rustling sound, like the sound of leaves being dragged on the ground by the wind. "Stop! Something's happening," Su Len reminded him immediately. The other 3 immediately moved closer to the center and stared at their surroundings without blinking. There were a lot of sacred death beetles. After 5 minutes, the insect tide finally retreated. When the black insect tide retreated, a thick layer of burnt sacred death beetles was left on the ground. "Hey! It stinks!" Valadin stomped a sacred death beetle that was still alive to death. After the battle, Su Len once again lit a torch and continued to explore the depths of the ruins. After the sacred death beetle tide, the group became more cautious. However, they did not encounter any more disgusting insects in the following exploration. After passing through this section of the tunnel, Su Len discovered that the tunnel behind them had been buried by sand. He could only inform the workers above to come down and dig up the tunnel again. Exploration of ruins was like this. Most of the time, they needed to clear the path bit by bit. Fortunately, the tunnel was not buried for long. After half an hour, the tunnel was dug up. Whoosh! Whoosh! A gust of cold wind blew. Su Len frowned slightly. Some strange sounds came from the tunnel, making people feel creepy. After the tunnel was dug up, Su Len saw the scene behind the tunnel. It was a hall with an area of about 2,000 square meters. The entire hall looked like it had been ransacked and was very messy. On the floor of the hall, there were a large number of skeletons. These skeletons seemed to be divided into two camps. Many of the skeletons were still fighting each other before they died. Crash! A sudden sound came from the empty hall, immediately attracting everyone's attention. Under everyone's gaze, a blue flame suddenly appeared and the skeletons on the floor began to move. It's the undead. All workers, retreat. Su Luen immediately ordered the moment he saw the blue will-o'-the-wisp. The workers hurriedly ran back to where they came from. Crash! 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 The sound of bones colliding could be heard. Over 100 skeletons stood up in the hall. The strength of the skeletons was not high. They were only slightly stronger than the lowest level skeletons and zombies. Their challenge rating was level 5. Barnes, Valadin, and Valadin were all high-level professionals. Dealing with these low-level undead was not a problem. In the previous battle, the three of them were unable to use their full strength against the sacred death beetles. However, facing these skeletons, it was like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. Valadin was wearing heavy armor. He waved his axe and rushed forward. The attacks of the skeletons could only cause some shallow scratches on his armor. However, every time he swung his axe, he could smash the skeletons into pieces. Barnes and Jane, who were following behind, waved their scimitars and swords. The skeletons were quickly destroyed. The battle only lasted for 10 minutes. Therefore, the skeletons were dealt with. The hall was filled with broken bones. After dealing with these skeletons, they did not rest and began to clean up the battlefield. These skeletons were very poor. In addition to some broken weapons, they only had some low-level soul crystals. The quality of these soul crystals was very poor and their value was very low. What a bunch of poor bastards! Jane, who was on the side, picked up a soul crystal and cursed. This hall is a side hall. Look around and see if there are any passages that lead to other places. Su Len said as he looked around the hall. Soon, they found a closed stone door. Rogue Barnes looked in front of the stone door for a long time and finally found the opening mechanism of the stone door. He pressed the mechanism, but the stone door did not move. It should be broken. Barnes said awkwardly. Let me do it. Su Len took a step forward. A light flashed and instantly hit the stone door in front of him. In the next second, the heavy stone door turned into a pile of soft soil and slid down. After entering the stone door, a small room appeared in front of them. There were a few skeletons inside and some gold items scattered around the room. Seeing these items, the three of them were very excited. Fortunately, they remembered that Su Len was the captain. Although they were envious, they did not make a move. Clean it up. We'll distribute it when we get out. Su Len was not very interested in these things. These gold items had been buried in the ruins for thousands of years. Many of them were shrouded in negative energy. Normal people who came in contact with them might get sick. They needed to find a priest to dispel the negative energy or let them be exposed to the sun for a period of time. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.